Madam Clerk, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Order of business, February 8, 2022, regular meeting of the Dearborn Heights City Council. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Yes. Make sure I do. Dave Abdallah.
Here.
Hassan Ahmad.
Here.
Mo Beydoun.
Here.
Nancy Breyer. Here. Robert Constant.
Here.
Ray Muscat is absent. And Tom Wenzel.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this particular point, we're going to go ahead and go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask one of my favorites, Dana, can you do us a favor and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Dana from the clerk's office.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dana Flamont from the clerk's office.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Beydoun.
threw me off for a second when you said one of your favorites. I was looking around.
No. She's definitely above you.
You only have to go to him and need a favor.
Okay, so next up on the agenda is agenda approval. That's for the Dearborn Heights City Council agenda approval for February 8, 2022.
Council Chair,
Councilman
I
Beydoun.
move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the agenda of the regular meeting of February 8, 2022 as submitted.
Support. All in favor? Okay, Mayor, go ahead.
I don't know if we can open up a discussion.
Go ahead, you want to say something?
Council Chair, I'd like to see, request the council to remove item 7C, just refer it back to the administration.
Okay, I spoke with the chief about that. That's no problem. So Councilman, you got to amend your motion, please.
I amend my motion to remove 7C as submitted.
Okay, everybody support, in second?
Support.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. So at this particular point, we're going to go ahead and take a vote. Take this to, any other discussion on that? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and take it to a vote. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of January 25th, 2022.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the minutes for the regular meeting of January 25th, 2022, as outlined in 4-A.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Constant. Any discussion on that? All in favor, state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 4B, which is minutes from the special meeting of February 1st, 2022.
Council Chair,
Councilman Beydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the minutes of the special meetings of February 1st, 2022 as outlined in 4B.
Support. Motion made by Councilman Beydoun, supported by Councilman Constant. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next up on the agenda is public hearings and comment on agenda items. Now, before we start, I'd like to make a statement on that, a quick statement on that. And I believe our counselor's on there, Gary Miyake, is on our Zoom call. Is that correct?
He was.
Yep, there he is. I see him. If you don't mind letting him in, please. He's got his muted. Are you muted? Okay, here we go.
I'm sorry, Council Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Great.
Okay, very good.
So just a quick question. I know I addressed it with you before in the past when we had the meeting, myself, Madam Clerk, and then we had the Council Pro Tem Ray Muscat with us. One of the questions I asked was in regards to allowing residents to speak during comments on agenda items. And we could take it to a vote right now, but I personally am in favor of this, where when the residents come up to speak, I'm in favor when they ask us a question. We'd agreed way back when in 2017, for some of the new members, not to comment back to the residents when they ask us questions. My personal belief, and I'm not speaking as a body, I'm speaking my personal belief, and if Gary Miyake is okay with that, we'll take it to a vote right now. But I believe when they ask council members, when residents come in to ask council members questions on items that are on the agenda, for us to be completely silent, in my opinion, is not the right thing to do. In my opinion, when a resident comes up and says, you know, I believe you should vote X, Y, or Z, I believe, A, we should have a right to answer it, and I think, B, residents should have a right to hear how we feel about it. It's not necessarily a vote at that particular moment. Now, if it gets a little, a little too crazy, then obviously we'll have to shut it down. But I believe we should give them at least the right to be able to answer the residents when they ask us a question. With that being the case, before we ask the council members what they want to do, how would we go about implementing that again?
The council chair, you would have to, there are two ways to do this. One of them is temporary. One of them would be more permanent. The more permanent way would be to amend the policy that you currently have. The temporary way to do it would be to suspend the rules by a 2/3 or higher vote. So those would be the two ways in which you could end up approaching this. Would not take much to end up changing the public comment policy that has been previously adopted, since I've done it several times before.
And to do this permanently, you'd have to make a change and then add it on the next agenda for the next council meeting, or can we do this right now? How do we go about doing this?
I would recommend doing it that way, because
That
the
way,
wording can make a
as in
difference.
The next meeting?
We could, if that's what you want
No,
to
when you
do.
said
Sure.
that way, which way is that way?
If you want to do it permanently, I could end up preparing paperwork for the next council meeting.
Perfect. Okay, so for council members, just something to think about. Obviously, I won't do nothing with just my personal opinion. It'll be with all of your opinions. But just give it some thought as to which direction you'd like to go. Now, one of the reasons they did get rid of it at one point was to create a little bit more efficiency so that we didn't have possibility of 10 residents coming up and commenting over, on different things that we're going to be voting on. I do see that point. But on the other hand, I personally believe that residents should be able to speak on agenda items. We should be able to hear what they have to say, and if we have to, we'll answer them, and then later on in the agenda, we'll vote on it. So just let that resonate in your heads. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Gary. Any questions on that or comments?
I think that's a good idea.
I like it too.
I'm sorry?
I think that's a good idea, Council Chair. I was chair when we adopted that rule, and Councilwoman Horvath then was very much against, it doesn't have to get in an argument, but if somebody stands up and says, hey, 1, 2, 3, and we should be able to answer.
Right, because at this particular point, when a resident comes up on an agenda item coming up, like let's say 7A, 7B, 7C, whatever it is, and they ask us a question and they say, Councilman, did you know that X, Y, and Z? I just got to stare at them. And to me, that just makes no sense. Go ahead, Councilman
So,
Bidun.
Councilman, I just want to confirm with what we're saying. I love the idea, but if somebody doesn't, if it's, and I think this is where Marge went back, and I don't know why I feel like I remember this. But one of the reasons why it felt like some people in the audience, and everybody's entitled to their own, were, I think, picking on a certain council member, and so that's why the resolution was put forward. So we also have to be aware of how we approve of it. If somebody comes on here to badger one of us, or the mayor, or somebody that's sitting up here, or one of the women from the clerk's office, I don't want somebody to feel entitled that because we supported this, that this person is forced to speak. If you want to speak on their behalf, you can, but as long as it's not forcing somebody to speak. Like if somebody requests something to ask your question and I don't want to respond to that, that certain individual.
Then that's within your right to just say, I don't respond at this point. But remember, we always have to keep a decorum. Yeah, if it gets out of hand, then obviously we'll put a stop for it, to it, because it is, our council meeting, including the residents, of course. But I just feel that residents should have a right to have us answer them with whatever questions they've got. Now, yeah, in a perfect world, what they did say way back when, and I was on the council at the time, in a perfect world, they could call us ahead of time, we could have a discussion with them. True, but maybe they want to have a discussion in a public forum and they want to make sure everybody hears it. And again, as long as they do it respectfully, allow people to comment.
I just have one.
Let me just, Councilman Wenzel had a question?
Yeah, I think a good idea would have all speakers or people in the audience direct their questions to the council chair.
Correct.
You can talk to us individually if you need some more, if we want to give you some more information to relate to them.
Yeah, right now the rule is, and I'm glad you asked me, Councilman Badun, right now the rule is we cannot respond back. So all we could do is if somebody comes up right now and asks a question, all we can do is just look at them and just say thank you for your comments.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so therefore, I don't know, to me, it's just not the right way to do it. I love the United States of America, and I love people's right to speak, and I'm not allow people's right, to be able to come up and approach us and ask us whatever particular question. I'm gonna tell you personally, I'm gonna give you my personal opinion. You know me, I'm a little opinionated. I say it the way it is. I felt that way back when this was put on because some council members didn't want criticism. So that's one way to avoid criticism.
Oh, yes. No,
Council
So-
Chair? Yeah,
Yes,
and
Councilman.
remember, it's on agenda items only.
Right.
But we should be able to, so before we take the vote, the idea was, and I think it was your idea originally, to let people address item on the agenda before we vote,
Right.
and then also they didn't have to stick around, and yeah, we should be able to answer.
Well, and there's another way, I'm glad you brought that up. So let's say I'm voting on something, and let's say there's 20 members here in the audience, which are a representation of people in the city, and let's say they're all against what I'm going to vote on. I want to hear what the audience has to say, or maybe even on Zoom what they have to say. But again, if it gets out of hand, then obviously we'll cut it down. But I think I would like to go back to that with all you guys' permission, and we'll address that, of course, later.
And we always
Councilman
address.
Ahmad. Yes, I'm sorry.
Everything is through the chair.
Everything's through the council chair, correct.
Council Chair,
Ahmad.
so is it just for the council members, or is it if they have a question for like a city official or director in the city, can they respond to, or?
Yes, technically it could be to anybody. But again, we'd have, and I'm gonna use an example, like Grandma Suzanne Todd, she'd come in and, she would speak and she would ask some really well thought out questions, okay? And Councilman Zahir Abdul-Haq, former councilman, Zahir Abdul-Haq would come in, very well thought out questions. Do you agree or disagree? That's a whole different conversation. But at least they've thought it out, they've taken the time to research it, and they come in and they ask us, council members, how do you feel about X, Y, or Z that you're going to be voting on? And all we can do is stare at them, and I just think it's wrong, personally. It's borderline disrespectful, in my opinion.
I think that's, you know what, I never knew that was the rule. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
I'd love for him to talk.
So with that being the case, at this point, because it's not official, we will not be able to answer you back. But if there's any members in the audience that would like to come up and make a comment on agenda items only, you will have 2 minutes to speak. Please state your name, the city you live in, and the street you live on.
Council Chair? I'm under the impression that your honorable body wants me to end up doing the change. Is that your direction?
Absolutely. On my end, with all council members, are you guys okay with us?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that then. Thank you.
Please. Thank you, Gary. Any members from the audience? Okay,
Sorry,
seeing
before we
none.
move on, Council Chair, can we have a limitation on it? I mean, it's not going to be like,
So remember, it's 2 minutes. They have 2 minutes to speak.
what about the
The
council?
only difference, no, for the council members, and I'm going to be blunt, I mean, if somebody goes on too long, I'll just say, thank you, Councilman, but we got to move on. That's something that would be at my discretion. I'm not going to put like a time limit. But most of you guys have been respectful of that, so we should be fine. So at this particular point, seeing none in the audience that want to come forward, Madam Clerk, if you could do me a favor, let in people on Zoom that would like to comment on agenda items only for 2 minutes, please. And please stay respectful, I'll allow you to speak.
I don't see any hands up.
No hands up? 1, 2, 3, okay. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is fund transfers and current claims.
Council Chair,
Councilman Baydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the current claims 6-1 through 6-27 as submitted.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, supported by Councilman Constant. Any discussions on that?
Council Chair,
Councilwoman Nancy Breyer.
on 627, we don't have an amount budget before the payment was made. That's the one with the CDBG
Okay.
transfer.
So who are you referring your question to?
Well, I'm wondering
CDBG?
what account the money's coming out. Is it coming out of
Okay.
admin?
So that would be either the controller that would answer that, or, I'm going to 627, or our CDBG director, Hassan Jamal. Director Jamal, are you on?
He was,
he on?
Yeah, he's connected.
He's been connecting. Here's Mariana's on.
He is coming on? I'm sorry.
He doesn't have audio. It says connecting to audio.
Okay, so it's not connecting.
So I have the chief of staff that has her hand raised.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Chief of Staff Mariana, go ahead, please.
There she goes.
Hello. I believe that, again, I see that Mr. Jamal is connecting to audio, so he may join us soon.
It's been like that since.
But I see that this is from the Community and Economic Development budget, which was from a prior year. So I believe that may be why the budget isn't there. However, it is my understanding that the PO had already been created approving the work for that, and it does have a signature from the director that's the owner of that account. So that is perhaps why the number isn't in that item. This is just carrying over from a previous project.
Okay, thank you, Chief of Staff Mariana. I'm sorry?
The comptroller is on Zoom if you wanted to ask her as well.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that answer?
comfortable with the answer.
Councilwoman?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, she's all set. Now, for all council members, I just want to remind you guys, especially on Zoom, because they cannot fully comprehend what you are saying if you don't have the microphones very close to your mouth. So I know it's not comfortable to have it like this, but that's why you got to come as close as possible. All right. Any other questions on current claims, 1 through 27? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. This is motion made by Councilman Baydoun, seconded by Councilman Constant. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is consideration of bids. We have item 7A, City Engineer Ali Dib, bid award for City Hall roof repair project.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council rescind motion 21-499 and concur with the bid award for the City Hall roof repair project to LED Lion Inc. in the amount of $98,510.59. In addition, approve payment to LED Lion Inc. for material costs for $36,472.25. Roof service in the amount of $25,200 and snow removal in the amount of $804. Furthermore, authorize the mayor and the comptroller to sign the necessary warrants not to exceed $98,510.59, and the treasurer to issue payment from proof counting account 101-200-817.000 as outlined in 7-8.
Support. Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, seconded by Councilwoman, was that you, Nancy Breyer?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. Any discussions on that?
Chair?
Councilman Wenzel.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Deeb, is the snow removal price optional in the event that there's no snow up there? Or is that it figured into the contract?
Council Chair,
The mayor would like to answer, if that's okay with you?
Yes.
Councilman?
Mr. Deeb is out on vacation.
He's on there also.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's because we have currently snow on the roof.
Yeah.
So they've been working around the clock just to make sure that if there's snow, they've been removing it. So that's already incurred.
already been
So they
taken,
already
doing it.
removed a lot of snow from the last storm.
And the work had already been started. I know right now a lot of the snow's melted, but they had already started, at least I seen them visually, probably about a week and a half ago,
Couple
maybe.
weeks, they've been on it for a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks now.
Okay, so that's a flat rate, though? I mean, if it
Yeah,
snows...
well, as long as it doesn't snow again.
Oh,
So
really?
they're,
How long is this project going to last?
well, as soon, if the
Month?
weather allows us, we could have had it done already, but because of the snowstorm, it took them a while for, when the snow stopped, they actually took the time to remove the snow. They had to shovel it. And they got most of it done today, so they're working on it all day today.
Is it going to cost us $800 every time it snows?
Well, it depends. They already finished most of it.
Yeah.
So right now, they're just getting to the one side of the building, which is the forward side of the building.
Just a follow-up question. I mean, I hope, I mean, there's snow, maybe, I'm sure it's going to snow again before the project's done. I mean, I guarantee you that, you know?
Yeah.
And, but it's, on a different topic, sort of, is this the entire roof, even the back part where the HR and everything is out there, the whole entire roof? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Councilman, per the motion, it is capped, meaning no more than $98,510. So if this exceeded for whatever reason, then the mayor's administration would have to come in front of us to approve or something further. Was there another, Councilman Ahmad, go
I
ahead.
do see Councilman Wenzel's concern, and I think it's kind of, like $800 is kind of excessive for snow removal. I mean, is there a special, I don't know, maybe Mr. Dib can answer that question. Is there like a special way, like they have to do?
Yeah, it's actually, it has to be done manually because of all the equipment that's on the roof. It's labor intensive is what it is. And we track the hours, the labors. So every time it snows, it has to be done by hand. You can't use equipment because you have material on the roof. You have air handler units, you have pipes, you have antennas, so it has to be done manually. It is labor intensive. And unfortunately, since we're doing it with snow on the roof, you can't just place the material on top of the snow. You have to clean it and put the boards down and then put the material. So it is labor intensive. We're hoping that we're approaching the end of it now, but if we get another storm, we'll track the labor rates and the hours, and that's how it's paid.
Thank you.
Mr. Dib, I had a question for you. So I know this is for roof repair. What about the roof replacement? Because I know at one point we needed some roof replacement. So is this 98,000, and in addition to that, there's a roof replacement? That's the first question. The second question I had, I'm sorry, I had two questions, so if I'm going to ask them both so you can make sure. The second question I had for you is, how was this bid out? How did you happen to select this particular company over somebody else? Now, I know a part of it is an emergency, state of the emergency that the mayor had to declare, and I do know myself personally, I've seen it visually. There was issues with leaks in the clerk's office. I know they even had to shut down one day. And I've seen visually also leaks in the comptroller's office, amongst other areas of City Hall. So if you could answer those two questions, please.
So about the bids, this was placed, it was publicly bid several times, and the issue was the lack of availability of material. It's a single-ply roofing system, and it is hard to find roofing material. And then the last contractor we awarded to, I believe it was A.A. Eldau, didn't agree with our form of agreement. He didn't agree with the form of agreement. He had the material, but didn't agree with the form of agreement. Now, about the issue with the full replacement, the roof itself, if you are to look at, yes, it does need a full replacement, but the cost is prohibitive because the minute you strip that roof, you have to deal with the deck itself. Then you get into the building system, and you're looking at multi-million-dollar project. This system that we have now, it's a single-ply system with a backing, a board backing that will go over the existing. It's a good system, and it will give you a solid, no-leak roofing system without the expense of having to deal with the deck, because the deck is old, the building is old.
Right.
And the system, once you strip it, you're looking at major replacement. You may even get into structural repairs at that point, and then you need to decide, is the building worth the repairs?
Okay.
I mean, eventually we have to deal with that, but this is a 5-year roof, minimum 5-year, and we have a warranty against the leak.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dib. Any other questions or discussions from?
One more question.
Councilman Tom Wenzel, go ahead.
Yes, is this roof going to be covered by a solid membrane, or is it just pieces put in the seams patched?
No, it's a full overlay. The entire roof, I'm gonna have to add minus the chamber, because that roof is newer.
Yeah.
So that raised chamber part is good. It doesn't have any issues with it. This is the rest of the whole building, and it's a complete overlay.
Yeah, I know.
So
What I meant was, is it going to be, like, once you put the panels, insulation panels down, is that covered with a solid membrane, like, you know, a 30-foot by
Yes.
100-foot roll of it, or is it just, the seams just
Oh.
are tarred?
No, full overlay
Okay.
on top of a board. The board is to try to prevent, what we had before, we had a drone fly over, and we took a full survey when we had rain, and the reason for that was to determine the low areas. So we had ponding water on the roof. And the way to address that is to place it's not insulation really, it's actually a hard board that goes under the membrane to prevent and to channel the water away from the roof and into the roof drains. And that's what we did. So it's a hard board below the membrane and a brand new roofing membrane that goes, a single ply that goes over the entire roof.
Did you add any drains, or did you have to increase the pitch at all?
No, we modified the pitch, absolutely. But the drains are sufficient. They just were in some areas, they were very restricted. So we had low ponding water away from the drain, and the drain was nice and dry.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take this to vote. So again, this is item 7A, motion made by Councilman Ahmad, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 7B, and it's the City Engineer Ali Deeb bid award for 2021 bridge load rating.
Council Chair,
Councilman Baydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council rescind the motion 21-600 and approve weight trim to complete the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, required bridge and load rating portion in the amount of $15,400. In addition, authorize the mayor, comptroller to sign the warrants and the treasurer to issue payment as outlined in 7B.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, supported by Councilman Ahmad. Is there any discussion on item 7B? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take it to a vote. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Deeb, for saving the city some money again.
Not a problem, sir.
Next item on the agenda was item 7C, that's been removed. We'll go next to reports from the mayor. There are none at this point. And next item on the agenda is item 9A. That's with City Clerk Lynn Senior, disposal of equipment.
Council Chair.
Councilman Constant.
Go ahead, you can call on Councilman Ahmad.
All right, Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the disposal of 2 office laser jet printers. These printers are no longer operational and have been replaced as outlined in 9-A.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Constant. Any discussion on that? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 9B. This is from Treasurer Lisa Hicks Clayton, Morgan Stanley Investment Strategy, City of Dearborn Heights Proposal Report.
Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the Morgan Stanley Investment Strategy City of Dearborn Heights proposal report as submitted, allowing the treasurer to invest funds as outlined in the proposal with approved financial advisions. Morgan Stanley, in addition, authorized the treasurer to sign documents as needed as outlined in 9B.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, supported by Councilman Wenzel. Any discussion on that?
Council Chair,
Councilman Wenzel.
I'd like to ask the treasurer, where did you get well, for lack of a better phrase, these ideas for this investment?
The idea of the investment came from the sale of the bond and having that money sitting in an account, not earning any interest, which was over $25 million at the time. And so what we did is we consulted with Morgan Stanley, and they are on Zoom with us tonight if you have questions, but they can give you more clarity on this item. But they are the approved financial advisors and investment firm for City of Dearborn Heights. So they have worked through it and worked through it with their legal department. And of course, all of our investments have to meet our investment policy, which I included in the packet for you. And that is based on Public Act 20, which is a requirement of all municipalities for all investments. So that's where the idea started. We've been working on it for a few months. It was ready at the middle of November or so, which is why I gave you a courtesy revision this evening, the supplemental. However, that's, it's impactful to see more like the flow of when the money is needed, right? Fluidity, when it's needed. And that was under the guidance and advisement of Engineer Deeb, because he's the owner of that project with those L43 that was already completed, L42, which is currently out to bid, and the water meters, which is a 1.5-year project. And then the last one that we talk about, which is L41, which I wanted to bring to your attention after consulting with Mr. Deeb as well. That one we may have to revisit funding at a later date.
What is L1?
L41?
L41, yes.
I would have to defer to Engineer Deeb if he doesn't mind, because he's owner of that particular construction project. Those are all the combined sewer overflow upgrades that are federally mandated. And we have a 5-year timeline now to get them done, though it has been on the city's plate for some time, for many years. And it's time to get it done. So that's the original reason we went out and bonded. So that's why we're trying to get these projects done, to be in compliance.
So L41 is the mandated sewer projects that, yeah.
Yep, and L43 and L42. There's 3 of them.
Okay.
So L43 was already completed, and when it was completed, it was paid out of the water fund, which is why the proceeds from the bond had to pay the water fund back. And you can see that in the spreadsheet. That's my personal spreadsheet for tracking expenses. But I wanted to share that with you for transparency's sake, so you could see how that money is being spent and the proceeds. But I also wanted you to be aware that some of these projects are coming in higher than originally first was anticipated or reported when we did the bond and the funding. So that's another reason why that last project, that L41, we're going to have to revisit it. But to answer your original question, this is all under the advisement of Morgan Stanley, our approved financial advisor. And like I said, they're on tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them on. So, thank you, Treasurer Lisa Hicks Clayton. Maybe stay up there if you don't mind, because in case there's other questions. So, for some of the fellow council members, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a bird's eye view as far as what's going on here. You've got and for some of the residents that are listening also, you got the treasurer who's involved for actually paying these payments. Then you got the administration, specifically through Mr. Ali Deeb, who decides which projects are needed and all the logistics of the actual project. Whether it's concrete, metal, we're going to start in April, we're going to start in May, whatever it happens to be. These are not things that the treasurer would deal with. And then you have the third party to this is Morgan Stanley, which is the investment firm who determines, based on the bond money that we have received, which way that bond money is going to be invested until the money is actually needed for actual payment. So they will get like maybe a 6-month, investment, or a 1-month investment, or a 60-day investment. They make these determinations. All we are determining today as a body is the recommended. We're not going to determine if Mr. Deeb's project and he wants, I don't know, 2 tons of concrete, if that's okay or not. That's something he determines. That's his field. We are determining if the things that Morgan Stanley's brought to the table, with the help, of course, of the treasurer, if we are comfortable with these particular recommendations. With that being the case, I'd ask through our treasurer, Lisa Hicks Clayton, to contact Morgan Stanley to come on, because in addition to reading this, because this is complex material, of course, I would like Morgan Stanley to give us, I told her I would give them 4 to 5 minutes to give us a general idea as far as their thought process, how are they investing this money, what they are recommending, and why. And then in the event you have questions, you could go ahead and ask them before we make our determination, because this is too big of a project for us to just vote on it without having all the facts and figures. So, Madam Treasurer, do you know who the person that would be coming on?
If we can ask them to raise their hands, can you see them? One is Eric with a K.
And Mr. Riga?
Yes, and Mr. Riga, Steve,
So,
yes.
Madam Clerk, can you let
Thank
them on,
you.
please?
Looks like there's also an iPhone.
Is he under iPhone, maybe?
Yes. I just-
There he is.
Okay,
That's Mr. Riga. Let me see.
there we go. Evening,
So-
everyone.
Good evening. So if you could do me a favor, because we have a lot of residents that are listening and watching, if you could explain it in non-financial jargon, just to the everyday folks so they could understand what it is that we are voting on, please, if you don't mind. And I don't know if it's, I guess it's you and Eric, so between the two of you, if you could have maybe about 3 minutes each, if you don't mind, if you could give a general description. Thank you.
Yep. So maybe what we can do is I can give an overview of where we are in the investment markets for these kind of short-term investments, and then Eric could talk to any specifics. But normally what we would try to do is marry the investment with the project in terms of the funding. So if a project is going to have funds due in 2 years, we would have an investment that has a 2-year maturity or something slightly less in case the funds are needed a little bit earlier. And that's the way we would marry the two together. But right now, we have inflation high. We have the Federal Reserve that has telegraphed what they're going to do in terms of bond buying or a reduction in their bond buying, and also what they're going to do with interest rates. So and things change very rapidly in the investment world and in the financial markets. So what's going to happen, the Fed is meeting, the Federal Reserve Board, which controls interest rates, is going to meet in March. They're going to hike rates. They're going to do it probably 2 to 3 more times this year. So right now, what we think is the most prudent thing to do is to keep the investments short term, say around 3 months. And if you need funding shorter than that, most likely keep it at a month or in cash. And then if we get a little more clarity on exactly how far the Federal Reserve is going to go in terms of raising these interest rates because of the elevated inflation, then what we might be able to do is fix some of the money going out a little bit further. So if a project isn't going to get started for 2 years or 3 years, at that point in time, maybe we suggest putting the two together. So for right now, though, we think that all of the investments should be made on a relatively short-term basis, and just see how this plays out. So unless there's questions,
any questions
over to you, but we're here for it, and you might have.
Sure, thank you.
And we've had a very long relationship with the city.
Correct.
I've been with you for 35 years, doing pension investments for you. So we've handled the police and fire since 1986. And so just to give you a little bit of background
No
there.
problem. Appreciate that. So before we bring on Mr. Eric Berger, any questions from the council members?
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I'm sorry, so my question is, I see here just average coupon is under 1%, so that's exactly like whatever we be making on the money, under 1%, and the reason is because we're not investing for a long time?
That's correct.
So is that possible that could change? This is of course just an estimate, correct?
Yes, and this is why we're recommending not having anything mature in a longer time frame. We want the maturity to be short term because we think interest rates are going to rise here in the next 3, 6 months, 9 months, and that we're going to have a better opportunity to invest for a little bit longer time frame after the Fed gets going implementing their rate hiking program. So we think it's better to be cautious right now. Take a little bit lower rate, although we think the rate is going to be increasing as we go along. But take a more prudent approach and keep it short term.
So the average coupon that you're talking about, under 1%, that would be the average for the one that will mature in 2023 and the one that are going to mature in 2024, correct? So combine
Because right now, what we're anticipating due to the changes that have happened in the last couple of months, we don't want anything maturing out in at the end of 2023 right now. We want to have things that are going to mature in April of this year. Or at the maximum out to July, let's say. We want to keep it short because let's say the coupon you're referencing is 0.5%, and let's say that the Federal Reserve raises rates by 0.5% at the March meeting. Now that coupon on an investment like that is going to end up being 1%. So it's going to go up. So what we don't want to do is tie ourselves up right now.
Council Chair, I don't see anything here that says anything about maturing this year. It only talks about 2023.
And if I could jump in, right?
Go ahead, Eric.
If I could jump in, may I? As far as I think what you're referring to, Councilman, is it was a sample of a portfolio that when we first got word of this and approval, we kind of put together a rough draft of a portfolio of what income might look like, and that was back in November. So a lot has changed since then with the Fed now moving interest rate hikes up, to 2022 versus 2023. So I'd say the inventory and probably the coupons, are higher than they were back then, just due to natural movement of interest rates. And then along the lines of what Steve said, the Fed increasing the interest rates later will only increase that coupon rate for those types of investments. And with these investments, it's nothing crazy, nothing sexy. As Lisa mentioned, it's PA 20 regulated, so we're strictly limited to U.S. government, bills, notes, and bonds, agencies, commercial paper of the two highest ratings of S&P and Moody's, so A2, P2, municipals, and money markets and CDs really is what we're limited to. So, in the 1% to 2% range is maybe a rough estimate. But those are the types.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Constant, go ahead.
Was Councilman Ahmad finished?
Yeah,
We all set? Okay.
And there are several factors, though, are there not? The Fed has already announced what they're going to do and then revised what they stated they were going to do, but also the federal government, they're unprecedented pouring money into the economy with all the different relief packages, if that's going to continue or not continue. Is it just based on what the Federal Reserve has said they're going to do, or is it based on other factors?
It's 90% the Federal Reserve.
Thank you, Councilman. Question for you that was asked by me in a discussion. Why would we get a bond at 3% that we are paying? Why would we not get it, in other words, in increments instead of just all at once? So we're paying 3% on that bond, but then we're going out and get it and doing investments at like 1%. So obviously for a net loss. The only thing obviously that was clear to me is obviously we want liquidity. We got some money available to us as those projects come up. Is that correct, or is there anything beyond that? Either Eric or yourself, either one.
We would.
Go ahead, Eric.
I would say we would keep them short term, because if they're just sitting in cash, it's essentially earning nothing in the bank. So we at least do some short-term investments till we get more clarity from the Fed. Earn, commercial paper out a month right now, you can get 0.3% on that at least. You go out maybe a U.S. government bond maturing in a year, maybe 1.5%, but until we know a little more clarity from the Federal Reserve in that, we'll keep it short term, and if interest rates do continue to go up as they're projected to, we'll look a little longer term, see if we can get increased cash flow from those investments just to earn something more than sitting in the bank account. I mean, right now, what a savings account's earning 0.01, 0.05%, so anything above and beyond that is an addition for the city.
Okay, thank you. Any other council members have questions? Because I have another question for the
Council Chair.
CDBG director. Councilwoman Nancy Breyer, go ahead.
I know in the past, the residents have been concerned about when money is spent from one account, how does it get paid back? And Lisa alluded to the fact that it will go back to the water department. I just wanted to let the residents know that that amount is $3,325,842.43, so it will be returned. Thank you. All done.
Just a statement only, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I had a question for the CDBG director. 440,000 was pulled from the project and reappropriated, the funds for it were reappropriated. And this was, I guess the treasurer found out a couple days ago. Can you give us an, I don't know, is he, I assume he's on, right? Hassan Jamal? He is. He is? There he is. Okay, there he is. I see him on my screen. Do you see him?
I asked him to, there he is.
Mr. Jamal, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, there you are. So what happened there? Why was 440,000 pulled from the projects?
Well, this project was bid last year, not according to CFR 200. Why? Don't ask me. Now, when me and PE Ali, professional engineer Ali Deeb, reviewed this bid, we found out that the bid is not anymore acceptable by the contractor because the contractor refused to sign the contract. Why? Because I think the situation with the economy changed, and it took over, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months to develop that contract. During that contest between Engineer Ali, Robert Conrad, our director for DPW, and Wade Trim, they did the engineering value and develop a model that model lead to say in a way that if we include federal grant in that particular project, the whole project becomes subject to Davis-Bacon, which Davis-Bacon is a different wage structure for the project. That's probably most likely, according to their value engineering study, it will cost more money than the federal money itself in that project. So that's why the decision was made to bid that project without being subject to CFR 200 and not subsequently subject to Davis-Bacon regulatory obligations.
Okay.
That's one aspect of that, and that's basically why the decision was made, not by me. It was made by the engineers and the city consultant, engineering consultant. I provide the money, or I take the money. The decision is actually based on that. Now, in regard to your question, Chair, why we didn't do the bond incrementally, I think Mr. Eric did not understand your question. The bond is already being issued. You can't do the bond anymore the way you want it to be done. That issued incrementally. So the bond being received, the bond is already being deposited. So now you have no way to go back.
Right.
Another aspect of that bond that, Engineer Ali, myself, we found out that there was no engineering cost estimation correctly being done for that project. There was no record. That's, PE engineer did inform me that there is no record of any value engineering being done on those projects. That's why the overrun on those projects now, we are going to be able to, thanks God, to actually use some of ARPA money to actually substitute the shortage of that bond to accommodate the cost of the project.
Okay.
Or maybe some FEMA money. If we got approved for FEMA money soon, we may use some FEMA money. We discussed that, myself, Engineer Ali, the mayor's office, actually, the treasurer also, and Mariana, the chief of staff. So we are aware of all this, changing factors, and now we have a new controller, and she's going to be also joining us on trying, to figure that mix. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jamal.
Mr. Chair.
Any other discussions? Yes, go ahead, Treasurer.
I was going to let council have any other questions. I just wanted to re-summarize real quick. And thank you, Director Jamal and Engineer Deeb, because yes, there were discoveries made that the engineering and the evaluations of what was required, we'll just call them discoveries, that altered how much money was needed. Do you see what I mean? And so that's why I let you know that that last project at L41, when you and I talked today, Council Chair, we're going to have to revisit this, the funding for that, because it's not there. And that's why I gave you my spreadsheet and gave you that kind of brief outline of what it looks like and the cost. But what I do want to say is the top priority for investments, and we've talked about this before, is safety and liquidity. I mean, safety is number one. And we do adhere to Public Act 20, which is, as Eric eloquently put it, we're not pretty or fancy bells and whistles. I mean, it's really boring stuff like, it's the A2, P2s, and CDs, okay? So it's not going to have a high yield, but it's safe. And it's going to be available when we need it to be available. And I do appreciate Morgan Stanley, and I want to thank Eric and Steve for joining us this evening because they really are experts and they're very helpful and they've guided the city for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer. Now, before we go ahead and take this to, is there any other discussions on?
I have Mr. Deeb's on the line. He has
Mr.
his hand
Deeb?
raised.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Deeb.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to add a couple of small details to what Mr. Jamal had indicated. As we all know, we sold bonds based on a list of projects. And they were like 4 or 5 projects estimated at $25 million. There were no backup. It was just a list of projects, and these projects were driven by mandates. The CSO mandate, separating the combined sewer overflow system. We have 3 projects, L43, 42,
Mr. Deeb,
and 41.
I'm going to stop you for 2 seconds, please.
Sure.
So a lot of times we speak in jargon that all of us are familiar with, but just for those in the audience that are not familiar with it, can you just give at least 1 or 2 sentences what the CSO specifically is, please?
Oh, okay.
So they can have a better understanding.
Sure. Combined sewers overflow. That's what CSO stands for. We do have some combined sewer, 3 areas, 3 basins where the combined sewers, sanitary and storm, are mixed together. Well, that's no longer legal. And the state Eagle Department of Environment had given us a mandate that you have, not just us, all the cities, you have to separate your sewers, storm from sanitary, within a period of time. And that is it's expensive. So before I joined the city, there were a list of projects that were developed by our consultants, and bonds were sold to finance the construction. And so I believe we have the end of 24, early 25 to meet all 3 separation. So we need to separate 3 basins. L43 is one, and that was completed. L42 is out on the street now, and L41 will be the last one. The list of projects funded by the bond issue, the 25 million, include all of the CSOs plus the water meter replacement. Yes, sir.
Right.
So, but when I joined the city, I was looking at the value or the estimated cost of all these projects versus what we sold bonds for. And this is what our treasurer, we had that discussion. And I'm looking at the first project, $3.5 million. I have project 2 out on the street now. That's estimated around over $10 million. And then the last CSO, and then plus I have the water meters, another $10+ million. So if you look at these things, you can tell there wasn't enough money put into the bond issue from the start. So what we're going to do is, as Mr. Jamal indicated, I put that on my capital list so we can look for other sources of fund to augment the projects and to prevent us from going back to taxpayers and adding more debt.
Right.
So debt service. My piece of this whole thing was to provide the funding timeline. So when do I need the money available for a project? So I provided that, and I believe it's based on that timeline, the investment strategy was put in place. So we can maximize the length of time that our finance gurus can, invest 3 months, 6 months, a year, because you can't do all $25 million worth of construction in 1 or 2 seasons. I mean, you have to spread it out. It's a lot of work, and so the funding timeline was provided. I believe we're on the right track. And then for your point about doing the series, in the future, when we have our capital program completed and our master plan completed, we will have a timeline that will indicate year 1, year 2, year 3, and it will show what funding is needed. And that will be the funding that we will seek alternative sources. Whether we go to grant or sell bonds. So we're on the right track. It's just going to take a little longer.
Thank you, Mr. Deeb, as usual.
Yes, sir.
Just quick question from the mayor or from our councilor, Gary Miyatki. Any concerns about this particular proposal at all? No. Mr. Mayor, none? Councilor Gary Miyatki, any concerns about Proposal 9B from the treasurer and from Morgan Stanley?
No, I have nothing on that. I just wanted to add a quick clarification on a point, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. My understanding of the reason for the delay with respect to the project was that we were actually beyond the hold period and that the selected firm was going to insist on an increase, this very significant change order with respect to going forward with the project. And Mr. Deeb and basically felt that we would be able to potentially do better changing around the project to a certain degree to be able to have better access to federal assistance to do the project, and therefore we held off on it last year. Mr. Deeb can correct me, obviously, if I'm wrong about that, but I just wanted to clarify that and make sure that that was correct.
Yep, when the contractor refused to sign the contract, but you wanted extra before we started, we felt that going back out, open the contract back out to public bid will be to our benefit. And that's what we're trying to do now. It is out on the street, and we should be able to get more competition to drive the price down, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deeb. Thank you, Councilor Gary Miyatki. Any other questions from the council members? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and put this to vote. So this is item 9B from our treasurer, Hicks Clayton. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And this is motion made by Councilman Baidoon, seconded by Councilman Wenzel. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you.
That's item
Honorable
9B.
Body. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer. Next item on the agenda is item 9C from Treasurer Lisa Hicks Clayton, Investment of Funds Report for December 31st, 2021.
Council Chair.
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council receive, know, and file the quarterly investment of funds report for December 31st, 2021, as outlined in 9-C.
Support.
A motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Baidoon. Any discussions on that item? None? We'll go ahead, this is just received, note, and file, so we'll go ahead and take that to vote. Correct? All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. And next item on the agenda is from City Engineer Deeb, approval of payment for DTE contract.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council authorize the controller to create a purchase order for the municipal street lighting project with DTE and authorize warrants to be issued in an amount not to exceed $712,131. By doing so, the City Council authorizing any such warrant and payment without prior authorization by the City Council of the specific warrant and payment as permitted by and consistent with City Charter Section 8.9 as outlined in 9-D.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Baidoon. Any discussions on that item?
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
and I don't know for sure, is DTE, I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Deep, is DTE like given anything with this? Like, are they like giving us, like, are they paying anything from their pocket, or are we paying for the whole project, or?
Council Chair?
So, Mr. Deep, before you start, and then I'm gonna allow Mr. Deep to start. You wanna go before Mr.
Actually, I
Deep?
can go first. So this project is the one that it was brought in front of council several months ago, and DT actually came in and they talked about the scope of the project. This is changing all the city LED, all the lighting to LED, with the exception of Warren, and this is going to save. So the money that we have here is going to be paid, I think, roughly 1.7 years. It'd be paid from the amount of money we're going to save with the new LED lighting. And after the let's say 1.7 years, then we're going to save between $30,000 to $40,000 a month in electricity.
But also, and thank you, I was going to ask Mr. Deep to give an abbreviation, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. But also advantages to Joe Public on the street is, and I've seen pictures of it. You know how they have like the yellow lighting throughout most of the neighborhoods where you just can't see as well, which is not as safe, obviously. With this new LED, I mean, you're seeing total white lighting. It looks a lot nicer. Neighborhoods look a lot nicer, and residents can see better, and it's obviously safer. So I thank the mayor and the council for bringing that forward. So good job. But Mr. Deeb, if you could, has Councilman's question been answered, or do you have more to add? Or do you have any other questions on that for Mr. Deeb?
Just wondering, I know DTE like has a residential program that where they come in and change the lights in the home.
Somewhat similar,
like
yeah.
So is this something similar? Are they, like,
Yes.
we're still paying money though?
Yes, so you're paying part of it. So all we actually have quite a bit involved because we have labor. So just a step back, we have approximately 3,000 lights on the street lighting system, and I understand, you guys understand how we pay for street lights, right? So we have a contract with DTE whereby the street lights are owned, maintained, and the energy cost is absorbed by DTE. So we have 2,817 street lights, but what we currently have is a mixture. As the Mr. Chair indicated, we have yellow metal halide, we have halogen lights, we have a mixture of wattage. Some are 100 and they go up to 400, 125, 175, depending on how and when they were installed. And then the life expectancy of these units are very short compared to LED. Plus the consumption, the energy is quite high. So the mayor indicated that in 1.7 years, you will get your money back just from the energy savings alone. Plus we worked it out with DTE after that project was presented to the council back in March, I believe, or April of last year. I sat down, we all did, many times with DTE to make sure that we have every available rebate included in the project. And we also made the project a little larger because you indicated that Warren Avenue was not included. And we also have some areas within the city that weren't lit properly. So we added more lights. So there will be a phase 2 to this project where we added a few more lights, and then we are going to address Warren Avenue in phase 3. So this project basically immediately will start phasing out all of our street lights, made them all uniform LED lights, and start saving us energy costs. And all the, like I said, DTE is participating quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deeb.
Yes, sir.
Any idea how long for that project to be done? Like changing all the
Well, they're
lights?
going to phase them out. They're going to phase them out. We haven't put the phases, so we'll be like streets. So we can't do, I don't want to shut down, the entire city. We will do just one area at a time. So they'll be done in phases.
And is there any, Mr. Deeb, any warranties on those lights? I see here we have a term agreement of 5 years. I mean, if any lights go out, do they
Fully
replace it?
responsible. DTE will pay, we will pay a flat rate that will include the energy and the insurance on the light. So all you have to do, if you have a light out or if it gets hit, you call DTE. Our people won't touch them.
And the energy cost, that's the one, the $533,000 a year?
The energy cost, that's the one that Mayor indicated, the difference in cost because of the wattage is going to save us about $40,000 a month.
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
Good
Yes, sir.
stuff. Thank you. Councilman Wenzel and Councilman Baydun.
The way I understand it is, we don't pay a light bill, or it's not metered, the amount of energy these lights use. We pay a set price per light.
Yep.
Say if it's, say every street light, DTE puts in and maintains. If a light goes out, they maintain it. We give them, $50 a month or something like that, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, now that being said, if we spend this $700,000 and get LED, and so DTE is paying a lot less to run these lights.
Yep.
And now it's going to cost us less per light now, after this is all said and done?
That's the $40,000 the mayor indicated. Yes, it's going to cost you less per light. The cost that we're paying up front is the conversion cost. It's the units plus installation.
Right.
So that's what we're paying. And then the reduction in the annual cost will be the $40,000 the mayor indicated. That will include the lower energy investment. Yes.
Okay, so just to let the residents know that these lights are 100% owned and operated by DTE, and
Yes, sir.
And if that being the point, if any resident sees a light out, report it immediately, because we'll get it fixed immediately, because it doesn't cost us a penny to get it fixed. DTE has to cover
Yes,
all
sir.
the costs. Yeah.
Well, it's also been expedited too, as the mayor mentioned in his video. I watched those. As the mayor mentioned in his video, there's right at the bottom now, residents, instead of calling the administration and the administration calls DTE, then DTE sends some, well, first of all, administration's got to go out there to try to figure out which particular pole it is, then they got to contact DTE and what have you. With the new system now, as the mayor mentioned in his video, the resident will be able to look right, I believe, at the bottom, and there's an actual number on there, and then all they got to do is just go to the website, punch in those numbers, and DTE will be immediately notified, and they'll automatically take care of it, cutting out, the middleman, the man and woman power to be able to, do all the details on that, and it's just quicker for the residents, so that's good stuff. Councilman Moby, do you had a question?
Yes, my question is, we brought this up last year when, I know Honey was just saying, this was the young gal that came in from DT and presented what was going to happen, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I want to confirm. So this wasn't a different project, we were just in negotiation, I'm assuming legality, things like that?
Yeah, that's the same project that they came and presented. They just had to, we added some more lighting.
Okay.
And, so
My next question is, I know we said we're not going to do anything on Warren, or do we have a plan for Warren? I know we have those lights, but it seems like those lights are kind of some of them are out. I mean, I've driven past it, up and down Warren, and I see a lot of those lights out. Is there a reason why we're not investing those on Warren as well?
Well, several years ago, they decided to go with different lighting, which is, the city went and paid for some of the lightings as they were, at the time, they were trying to make it downtown, Dearborn Heights. So they used different lightings, and those lights on Warren right now, they're obsolete. You can't order them. So we do have another phase, once we get all the lightings for the entire city with minus those lights that you mentioned, we're gonna go back and we're gonna try to replace all these lightings because you can't repair them. So we have another proposal and we'll definitely present that to the council once we get more details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member questions or comments?
I've got just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Council Chair. Mr. Deeb, do you know what we're paying per streetlight right now and what the cost will be per streetlight after this project's done to operate?
I don't have it in front of me, but
Per month?
So if you don't have it in front of you, Mr. Deeb, so that we're not delayed, if you don't mind maybe providing it to all
I
the
will.
council members via email maybe tomorrow?
I think I have it. Sure. $155.
$155 per year per
Yes,
light?
per year, per light.
And then that's the new cost or the?
The new cost.
The new cost?
Yeah.
And it's costing us more than that now?
238 or something?
I'm sorry?
It goes, what's the cost now? 200?
I don't know what the-
Is it over $200 a
I'm not sure
light?
what the
We're
cost-
paying $238 for
200.
a place on 715,000 at 3,000 lights. You break that down, that's $238 per light in the city.
This is what we break it down to 2,817.
Mr. Deeb, you can look in and get back with me and I'll
Yeah, just
report
a
it later.
Yes.
Review. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and put this out to a vote, and this is approval of payment for DTE contract from City Engineer Ali Deeb, item 9D. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 9E. This is from Controller Irby, new claim presentation format.
Council Chair.
Councilman Constant.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the new claims format presentation to be used to present claims to the city council as outlined in item 9E.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Constant, supported by Councilman Baydoun. First of all, I do have a comment, but before I begin, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, introducing our new controller to the audience and to the council members. I assume she's online. I believe she is. Yes, there she is.
Thank you, Council Chair. So we do have a new comptroller. We're lucky to have her. She had worked for three cities before she came to Dearborn Heights, and she's been on the ground running. So she's in the afterburner stage right now because of all the stuff that needs to be done. So at Deanne Irby, she's online right now.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Looking forward to working with you. So with that being the case, one of the things that I was having a conversation with the controller and our chief of staff about is just a lot of sometimes redundant paperwork in the packets that really does not need to be done. And through my conversation with her, she had mentioned the amount of time that's involved in putting these packets together that honestly are not necessarily, and if you watch a lot of council, I've been to different council chambers where there's a council meeting going on, they don't do this. We're the only city that does this. And I asked about the history, and I was able to get the history from someone way back when one of the council members wanted this. This was added, and then we started doing it on a regular basis, and they just kept doing it over and over and over again. But yet there's hours upon hours upon hours put on by the staffing in the controller's office, and they have, for all of us that know, a lot more important things to do than to just process paperwork that is just really not necessarily needed, as most cities don't have it. So with that being the case, I said, do you have a better system? And this was a system that she came up with, and I can tell you, for one, I personally love it. Now, with that being the case, the controller still has to sign this The mayor still has to sign this, and the directors still see all these items that are on there, of course, in addition to the clerk and the council members. When the council member sees an item on there, a line item, that they are not comfortable with, that red flags are raised, or just want more information, then absolutely positively they can ask the controller, and she and her staff will be more than happy to provide it to us, maybe to all the council members or just that particular council members. But if it's not necessarily necessary or needed, there's no sense in them spending hours upon hours every 2 weeks putting this stuff together that is really not used. With that being the case, that's my 2 cents worth. Any other comments from
Council
the
Chair?
council members? Councilman Ahmad.
I totally agree, Councilor Chair, but is there any possible way we can add another column for description?
She has descriptions on there.
I don't see them. If you flip the page, there's no description. So that's how we're going to see them.
Okay, you're talking about, okay, you're talking about on
At
the
least
news.
like
Okay,
after
I'm
the
sorry.
vendor's
I
name, maybe a
misunderstood.
description.
And I'm sure the controller can do that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, I've already made a note. That's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you very
Beautiful.
much.
And Controller, I know you mentioned you and the mayor will be signing it, but the particular directors, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Will you have personally signatures from them, or who would be getting the approval from the director, from the particular director, and how? In what format?
Certainly. So each and every invoice that will come to the comptroller's office must have the director's signature on it, as well as the account number. We would not add it to this list for claims that would go to your body without their signature. And you will still get a copy of that invoice, and you will be able to see their signature on it.
Beautiful. Now, in addition to that, I just want to make sure, and I've said it before, but I'll just repeat again to administration and to the mayor's department, that I'm not going to allow something to go through unless the controller and the mayor has signed it. And then with your signature, controller, that would be an indication to us as a council body that you already have the signature in file or whatever from the particular director, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
beautiful. Any other questions to the controller? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. This is item 9E.
Council Chair.
Councilman Wenzel, go ahead.
I just, when I was looking at this in the packet, I was, now are we going to get something like this instead of this?
Correct.
Yes.
And sometimes it's good to look at all these things. You find, okay, you still get the backup? Okay, okay, all right, we're still getting the backup.
Right, it's just,
Okay.
right, but it's just going to be abbreviated, it's going to be a lot less work for the controllers
We
to
just won't
put
get this,
together.
like the clerk said, we won't get this cover page, we'll get all the backup. Okay, I thought we.
So what will be, here, let me pull them up just so at least
Yeah, okay.
either those in the audience or maybe some of the council members can see. So let's say, here, I just happen to pull right now 6-8, okay? So this one here, I don't know how many others can see it, but you won't have this first page, but you will have the backup.
Yeah, okay.
Now, instead of doing all these first pages, it'll be in all one-page format. All of them will be on there. Pretty much the same information will be on there. But again, if you need more information, you're welcome to call the controller, and she'll be willing to. And look, whenever we have something that's somewhat, I hate to use the words controversial, but, needs a lot more information or discussion than others, then I'm sure she'll provide it to us.
Yeah.
Okay?
Council Chair, I'm sorry, before you move on.
Okay, Councilman
I'm
Ahmad.
sorry, if it's not too much, is it possible to add more columns, like maybe the fund and who's requested by for payment? Is that too much to add, or?
So would you like the fund in words?
From which
Because
fund
the 101.
and who's
okay.
requesting the money, correct? Plus the description.
Sure.
Thank you
I can
very
add
much.
that. Certainly.
Now, keep in mind, we're making the motion here, but this is fluid. So if we found, this didn't work, to the next 2-3 meetings, what have you, then between us and the controller, and I've had, good discussion with her. She's very sharp. I'm sure she'll come up with something even better, in case we had a problem with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Constant, go ahead.
Well, remember, it's incumbent upon the council people to ask questions or before the meeting, so we used to get into sometimes long debates about a particular claim during the meeting.
Right.
Hopefully,
That's a very good
will
point.
occur before the meeting, and then the meeting will run more smoothly.
Correct. So if, as a council member, and I've had conversations with different council members, if a council member has an issue with a particular claim, and they think it's just a question that they have, then obviously contact the particular director and have that conversation with them so that they either answer the question that you have, or they are prepared for whatever question you're going to ask them, because there are certain questions sometimes that you may feel as a council member that you want the whole body to hear it, and you want all of us to be able to make that particular decision on it. Then at the very minimal, out of respect to the directors, contact them ahead of time or email them ahead of time. I see one of our great directors here, Eric Watland from our building department. Good job, Eric. But anyways, contact, let's say, Eric, and let him know, hey, I'm going to be asking you at the council meeting X, Y, and Z. Please have that data prepared so that all of our council members can hear the answer to that. So that's a good point. Thank you, Councilman Constant. Councilman Tom Wenzel.
Council Chair, in all fairness, almost all of my questions come from a discussion we're having up here, and it brings me to a question I have on something that's talked about. And a lot of times I'll ask a question I know the answer to, but I want the residents to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good point, Councilman. And that's why I said, if you feel something that the body and, of course, in addition to that, the residents need to know, then yes, absolutely bring it up at the council meeting. But if it's something that you think you could just get the answers to, it's just a question you had, or maybe one of the newer council members just want to get a little bit more of a clarification because something they're not used to, then they contact the directors ahead of time. But you're going to see me as a council chair, I've always been a proponent of this, because when I used to watch the council meetings way back when, before I got elected 7-8 years ago, I had no idea what I was watching, because a lot of times they would speak in city jargon or clerk jargon or DPW jargon, and it wouldn't be something I'd be familiar with. So that's why, if you notice, a lot of times I'll ask the particular director to explain to the audience and the residents just a general idea of what it is that they're referencing, so that when we're having a discussion, the residents, having a right to know, because it's their money we're spending, can have an understanding what it is that we're spending money on.
Exactly.
So, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Any other discussion items? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. From Controller Irby, item 9E. All in favor, and this is a motion made by Councilman Constant, seconded by Councilman Baydoun. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Good job, Controller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 9F, and this is from Fire Chief Dave Brogan, budget amendments.
Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council authorize the controller to amend the fire department budget as followed, as outlined in 9F. Do I have to read all of those, or can we just say as outlined in 9F?
You can say it. And you can
As
just
outlined-
say as outlined in
As
9F.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. As outlined in 9F.
Okay. Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. Any discussions on that?
Council Chair, can we have the chief give a little explanation on how this affects his budget?
Sure, no problem. Chief Dave Brogan, please. Is he on? I seen him on. There he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ready for you.
Yeah, good evening, council. If most of these aren't a real change to the actual budget. Like if you look at the first one, it is about my contractual services. The Acumen bill, for example, you guys see that every month. That has been paid throughout the years from our rescue runs from the revenue, and that's not an appropriate accounting. It's supposed to come out of contractual services. So that's a bill of a ballpark $7,200 per month. And so that's, we can't take that out of rescue runs, so we're going to move it to contractual services. That wasn't budgeted for. It was budgeted to continue like the way we had been doing it, which isn't the proper way to do it. And so it's not really changing the expenses. They're going to be the same expense. And it's going to be the same thing for something called the QAP tax, QAAP tax, is a service tax from the state of Michigan that goes on every transporting ambulance in the state. That was also paid from rescue runs, and so you add those two together, and that's the $99,700, and that just needs to be tracked from the proper fund. So these aren't true changes to the budget necessarily. That's just tracking them in the right way. And then the other large one is concerning the purchase of the fire truck, which we've all, it's gone through council. We've all approved it. but it wasn't, we didn't account for the loan proceeds. And so the loan proceeds we had to create an account for that, for the money to go into, and then we had to change the capital outlay to show the correct amount of the entire purchase of the truck coming out of it. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Fire Chief Dave Brogan. I've got just a quick question for our controller. So when a recommendation is made like this by our fire department through our Fire Chief Dave Brogan, and it's to authorize you as a controller to amend their budget, is there a discussion between you and the particular, not just in this case, but in general, with you and the particular department head to make sure that you are also on board with what's being recommended? It is?
I know that she's still muted, but I can answer. There definitely is.
Yeah, can you unmute, controller, please?
Yeah, I've asked her to unmute.
And she's been a huge help too, by the way. She hasn't been here all that long, but I've had great discussions with her as well. I know you guys have already introduced her, but.
All right, now she's unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I did speak with the fire chief about this, and I would hope that, and I've spoken with the library director, which is the next budget amendment up. All of the directors have been very, very good to work with, and the communication is flowing well, and we seem to work well together. But yes, all of the budget amendments should come through my office to make sure that they're using the right account numbers, to make sure they're interpreting their budget or their dollars, just to make sure we're all on the same page. They're not finance experts. I'm not a fire expert. So we're just going to work together, but definitely the budget amendments should come through my office.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and vote on this. Item 9F, motion made by Councilman Baydoun, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is our Library Director McCaffrey budget amendment.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council authorize the comptroller to amend the library budget as follows. Increase building maintenance account 738-738-931.000 in the amount of $11,000 to be taken from the library millage revenue account 738-000-402.095. This is for computing upgrades for the proprietary heating cooling software as outlined in 9-G.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Ahmad, seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. Is there any discussions on that? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take that to vote. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is item 9H. That's with Police Chief Myers. Permission to accept Department of Justice grant.
Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun.
I miss when you used to call to read as well.
Huh?
I kind of miss when you used to call to.
Yeah, I know. I used to back and forth.
I'm waiting around. I'm waiting for you to, call it. But
I try to spread it as much as possible.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council authorize the mayor to accept the Department of Justice grant and grant agreement for the body-worn camera project. In addition, approve the purchase of the item in the grant as listed in the award email and attachment as outlined in 9H.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, supported by Councilman Constant. Is there any discussions on that?
No.
I'll just make a quick statement. I spoke with the police chief today, and we are, for the residents just to know, we are in the final stages. Just a couple T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted, but we are in the final stages. The administration and the police department are moving this forward for getting body cams for all of our police department. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Maybe the chief can answer.
Councilman Mobidoun and Chief, if you could unmute, please. Chief Myers.
Let me get him.
He's there. I see him bottom right.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
There we go.
Hey, thank you. My first question is how many, I know we said they're going to be limited that we're going to have, but do we know how many officers are actually going to be wearing these, or are these going to be for all of the officers?
So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. This is the acceptance of the bid, or of the grant rather, from the Department of Justice. This will offset the costs.
Okay. But overall, can you answer that question?
What's that?
I'm saying overall, can you answer that question for the residents?
Sure. I'd have to pull up that part of the bid. I believe it's for 77, which will put every person on the road to be wearing body cameras unless they're doing undercover investigations or inside as work on the secure side of the police department.
Awesome, awesome. And while I have you here, and somebody asked me about this recently, so I'm going to ask you if that's okay with the council chair.
Sure, go ahead.
I know we were supposed to be purchasing those speed radars that were supposed to go around the city. I believe we approved 6 or 7. Do we have an update on that?
Actually, it's funny you said that. The signs arrived this week. They were finally shipped. So like cars, like everything else, parts are hard to come by.
Yep.
So that purchase was just delivered. So those signs, working with DPW, we'll start having them to be deployed. But there's obviously some assembly and things like that got to go into it. So you shall see them very soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Chair. Councilman Constant, go ahead.
Thank you. But item 9C was pulled. Is
7C.
I'm sorry, 7C, thank you. Chief, is there any kind of a timeline? When we'll be accepting the bid and purchasing them?
So the bid was pulled. Myself and the comptroller worked with the attorney to review. This is the first time we're using Department of Justice grants. And when we put out the original bid, we didn't have a grant. The grant wasn't available. A grant came up, we've been awarded it. But in order to properly use the grant money, there are certain rules, laws, and regulations that have to be followed. And out of an abundance of caution, we want even our bid to be reviewed by the lawyers to make sure 6-8 months down the line, 2 years from now, if we are audited by the government, that they don't say, you have to give us this money back because you didn't follow one of our rules. So we had to pump the brakes a little bit, go through the process and make sure that we're following all those rules, because the Department of Justice grants are very specific, very rule-orientated and administrative law-orientated. And out of an abundance of caution, we tried to expedite it for this meeting and we just couldn't get it done. So we've asked to hold off on it until the next meeting.
Great explanation, Chief Myers. Thank you.
And I'd like to commend our administration, our police department, fire department, and all of our departments for that matter. In all my time on council, I'm seeing more and more different departments and administration in the mayor's office going after all kinds of grants, including obviously having a grant director, et cetera. This is free money that we get from the feds, so we save a lot of our residents' money, so good job to all involved.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead, we're gonna go ahead and.
Council Chair?
I'm sorry?
Still talking.
Councilman Wenzel, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, do you roughly know the total cost of the body cams and give the residents the cost and the amount of the grant, what's offsetting the cost?
So the grant is for $172,000. I guess I don't even know if I'm supposed to comment on the bid cost yet, because if the lawyers determine that we need to put additional language in the bid, we might have to go out to rebid. So it would take another 30 days, so the prices may change. We're trying to use the already submitted bids if they're legally acceptable, if they meet the standards that we need. So I don't want to really lock into a price because I know what they are, but if we have to rebid it, that could all change.
Yeah, is it
So that's why it was pulled. I'm not trying to be elusive, it's just, I don't know if I'm violating rules by saying what a bid price is now and then us not taking it.
Wait,
Maybe Mr. Miyake.
Councilman, just 2 seconds so that we don't break any of the rules.
Yeah.
It looks like our Councilor Gary Miyake is trying to comment on this. So Gary, do you want to give us some direction on this, please?
Oh, we can't say what
There you
the.
Yes, my recommendation would not be to address these bids in a public forum in this fashion. It's my understanding Mr. Kaldrakis will be looking at these matters and will give his opinion about whether or not we need to do a rebid. but I would suggest not saying something because it could prejudice the bid process. Thank you.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Gary, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chief Myers, okay, you all set, Councilman? Okay, thank you, Chief. Is there any other questions on this? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and put this to a vote. Item 9H, made by Councilman Baydoun, seconded by Councilman Constant. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is from Police Chief Mark Myers, purchase and payment of tasers. Item 9I.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the purchase of 70 new tasers for patrol operation from Exxon Enterprise, Inc. in the amount of $252,000. The cost will be broken down to a 5-year payment plan. In addition, authorize the mayor and comptroller to sign the warrant and the treasurer to issue payment from police ammunition account 101-300-744.000, including future payment to be paid to Exxon Enterprise, Inc., not to exceed the payment plan as outlined in 9-I.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Constant. Is there any discussion on that?
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
Chief, did this go out for bids, or this is something we don't as?
Chief, if you could unmute yourself, please.
I'm trying.
Oh, okay, the clerk is getting you on.
Yep, here I am again. Yeah, I was just waiting. So thank you, Councilman. So you'll see in the backup that you provided, Axon Taser, their taser body equipment is a single source provider. Taser is the only person who provides this type of tool for law enforcement. So there isn't a bid process to be done. This is a single source.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chief, I have a question for you, please. You mentioned this was replacing the Taser X26. Am I not mistaken? How long has it been since we've gotten those?
So I can put it in iPhone
Because I know
terms.
these go with the new system.
Yeah, so we're three evolutions of the tool displaced. So if we were talking about iPhones, we're sitting with an iPhone 6 or 7 right now, when the 12s are on the market.
Okay. This is the way I like it explained.
I
I got it. That's all I needed.
All right. The short version is they no longer make these. We're paying very high rates to try to have these repaired. At times, they're not even repairable. We are at end of life cycle. They were end of life cycle probably 2 years ago. We've just managed and limped through. We had budgeted for these in the current budget, and that's how, working with the comptroller, the 5-year plan was to come up to cover these. This is maintenance, repair, replacement, and upgrade, all with the program.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. So we're going to go ahead and vote on this. Item 9I, motion by Ahmad, seconded by Constant. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is under new business. This is for the 13A permanent traffic control device T288, install one stop sign southbound military at Parkway Circle and one stop sign northbound military at Parkway Circle.
Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve of the permanent traffic control device T-288 and install stop sign on the southeast corner of Military and Parkway and the northwest corner of Military and Parkway as outlined in 13A.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Baydoun, supported by Councilman Ahmad. Is there any discussion on that?
Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun.
So I just want to tell you, I was at Caesar's Coney Island. I was having a salad there. A resident who lives in the area stopped me. He was telling me about a corner on Military or in Military Hills, and I swear I understood nothing. He kept telling me this corner, this. I said, honest to God, I don't know. So I picked up the phone. I made a phone call. And I put the phone on speaker and I said, tell him exactly where you're talking about. He told him exactly where he was talking about. A week later, I get a phone call from one of the officers and he said, hey, we're going to approve that. And I was mind boggled by this because I said, I really had no idea where this was. But I also want to let, the police chief or the police department, there are a lot of areas in our city of Dearborn Heights, especially on the south end, where they're long stretches. And I know sometimes we've done studies and, it doesn't sit right or doesn't feel right to have a stop sign there. But I want you guys to know that when we adopted the city in the 60s, our city has grown so much more. There needs to be a lot more stop signs in our city of Dearborn Heights. There needs to be a lot more stop signs. And I'm wondering if there's a way maybe our administration or the police department, we can go around and seeing where we can adopt and put more, stop signs across the entire city of Dearborn Heights. Just a quick one. If you are going, and Councilman, maybe, you can help me here. If you're heading on John Daly towards Cherry Hill, and I'm on Wilson and John Daly, and I'm heading towards Cherry Hill, the first right that I can make on that side street, where the Batars live on the corner, you make a quick left, and you make a right, you're on Sheehan, and you take Sheehan from the Batars' house and Mr. Deed's house, all the way down to Inkster, there's not one stop sign. Not one. So I can shift my car from 25 miles to 45 miles an hour, all the way down, and there's not one stop sign there. But this isn't just that stop, it's just not just that neighborhood. There are many neighborhoods like that in the city of Dearborn Heights. I'm asking that please have the department look into that, the administration to look into that. There needs to be a lot more stop signs in the city of Dearborn Heights. I appreciate bringing these two on here, I really do. I know for the next one is Mr. Milad has been asking for this for a long time, and we're lucky to be able to grant him that. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion items on this? Okay, hearing none. Item 13A, Councilman Baidoon, seconded by Councilman Ahmad. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 13B, Permanent Traffic Control Device T-289, I'm sorry.
Council Chair,
Councilman Ahmad.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the permanent traffic control device T-289 and install stop signs on the northwest and southeast corner of Nightingale at George as outlined in 13-B.
Support.
Motion made by Councilman Ahmad, supported by Councilman Constant. Is there any discussion on that? Just a quick comment. Thank you to the police department for continuing to look where we need to add stop signs so we can slow down a lot of this speeding. I know we can't add them on Ford Road or Beach Daily or Telegraph, but thank you for continuing to look into that, and I for one appreciate it, and I'm sure the residents do too.
Council Chair?
Councilman Wenzel.
I know as Councilman Baidoon has had several discussions with the police department, and one of the officers, Sergeant Dotter, he's very proactive on these stop sign issues, and I want to tip my hat to him because he just resolved an issue I had, and it's going to make a lot of residents very happy. It's like I say to him, it's better for the motorists and it's better for the pedestrians.
Yes, absolutely.
So my hat goes off to him and the rest of the police department on this issue.
Yes, absolutely. And Sergeant Daughter is one of the good ones, definitely.
Council Chair, if I could.
Yes, Chief, go ahead.
We have always tried to balance, the beautification of our city. We don't like seeing signs on every corner. The more traffic, we want people to stop at the stop signs. We want them to go 25 without having to put a sign every 100 yards. So it's a balance. It really is. We need cooperation. We need people to respect their neighbors, because now when we put the stop signs on there, we need people to stop at them, because kids are relying on you to stop. If they know there's a stop sign there, they're going to continue to walk across the street thinking people are going to stop. So we need cooperation from the citizens. We need people to care about their neighbors, slow down in the neighborhoods and respect each other. That would go really far, and we'll continue to reassess our traffic control devices throughout the city. So thank you, and Sergeant Dodder's doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. So item 13B, excuse me. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 14, and this is comments from council members.
Council Chair?
Councilman Wenzel.
Thank you. First of all, we all witnessed this really funky weather pattern we had in the last week. And fortunately, we didn't get the snow that was predicted. But with that came some rain and freezing rain and slush. And it made it very difficult to determine, our DPW, our highway department, what to do and when to do it. And unfortunately, I'd like to say they did a good job. However, they didn't do a good job. They did a great job. The department came through. The timing was perfect when they came by and plowed, when they salted. It was the Director Conrad, I don't know if it was you or the conglomeration of people getting together, but the strategic plan was outstanding. A drivable street doesn't mean it's plowed down to the pavement. It's where you can drive on it safely. So my hat goes off to them. They did a fantastic job in this really funky weather pattern we had last week. And also, I'd like to congratulate our ordinance department. They're doing a great job with the limited resources they have. There's been some issues with lately, but these guys are working their butts off. They need more people in there. They're doing a fantastic job also. And like I'm stressing at every meeting is the family aspect of Dearborn Heights, as we should get together as a city of families. And recently with the snow, it gave a great opportunity to take your family out to sledding, or what we do on our block, we take the kids out, we shovel snow for seniors and people with disabilities that can't shovel their snow or have to pay someone. We do it for free. It's a really cool thing. And also, like I say, another great family thing is to go to church together with your family or go to the services with your family. And I know we have a family event coming up soon. I think the Director, Lauren Sell, is going to speak on that. Today I won't steal her thunder. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Wenzel. Any other comments?
Chair,
Go ahead,
I do agree with Council Wenzel, but to be honest, I did receive a few calls from different residents about the streets. They sent me different pictures from different cities showing exactly the difference between those streets on the other cities and our streets, like showing, I don't know if they didn't put enough salt or, so I don't know if we can hear from DPW director to see exactly what's the approach they use to clean the streets.
Okay.
So some people were happy, some people weren't happy, and still.
So I'm going to let on Robert, our Director, Robert Conrad from DPW on. If you could please unmute yourself. But before he goes on, I'm just going to give you a little heads up. You could go on, if you've seen it on social media, let's pretend. You go on the Facebook page of any city in almost any country, and you'll see people complaining about the snow and it's not done right and how come they didn't salt it and why they get the snow on my driveway. Don't misunderstand me. Some of the complaints are probably justified.
Well,
but I'm just saying,
so.
it's, I just happen to have gone on different cities and noticed that almost every city it's the same thing, just FYI. But go ahead, Director Conrad.
Thank you, Council Chair. So I don't actually agree that all cities that there probably are other streets in other cities that are better. But again, even within our own city, we address different streets. Our major roads and our emergency routes, they receive attention right away at the beginning of the storm. They also get salted and plowed. When it comes to those remaining local roads that aren't emergency routes and aren't, some of our major roads, we just plow those and, they don't receive as much salt as the other emergency routes because we're not looking to provide the same level of service. Salt is very expensive. It's not good for our pavements. It's harmful to our infrastructure. We want to keep that salting at a minimum. Again, like Councilman Wenzel said, this was a unique storm because it was wet. It was rain first, then it was wet snow, then it got really cold. There are varying, conditions throughout our city depending on when we got to them. I will say that, we are continuing to address the local road systems on a daily basis. So what we started Monday is all the areas that had trash pickup on Mondays. We were in there Mondays addressing those roads, trying to clean up stuff that we, could have put some additional attention to. And we are out there again today in those trash areas and we'll continue all the way through Friday.
Trash days are good days for us to get in there, just like the sweeping. That's when their cars are supposed to be off the road to assist in the trash removal. So it's also good for us to get our roads cleaned up because there should be limited cars on the street, I should say. Not that there aren't cars on the street, but it makes our job a lot easier when there aren't cars on the street. So I guess, while I have the mic here, I want to thank all the residents that moved their cars off the street during the snow emergency and made our job so much easier.
Okay. Thank you, Director.
Council Chair.
Councilman Moby Dun.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to begin by saying, just kind of congratulate Councilman Dave Abdallah. I know you've been running the meetings very efficiently, you're doing a phenomenal job here, and I know it's not easy. So I'm going to give you a good round of applause for that. And next to my the colleagues to do the same. Just a couple of congratulations. I know Haley Foster was just won the first tournament at Annapolis High, so I want to also congratulate Haley Foster. She's been wrestling for many years. I was stuck in a pickle between watching this meet. It was a Crestwood student and an Annapolis student. The Crestwood coach was cheering. Annapolis coach was cheering. Haley was victorious. Congratulations to her. It was a very bittersweet moment. And just to DPW, I actually rode along again for the second year in a row. Thank you to the mayor for allowing that and orchestrating that with DPW director. I seen how hard these gentlemen and young gals worked day in and day out, but I do want you to know that there are still some streets that seems like we're not salted. A friend of mine sent me a video this morning at about 9 a.m. saying, my street has not been plowed or salted. It's on Lawrence. So, Director, maybe we may have missed that. If you can send somebody out there to just swing by and take a look at it. I know I've received great compliments, and some others were kind of like, it seems like they weren't being salted or plowed. But I understand that it also still snowed after we plowed and salted. So that could have potentially been the reason as to why that happened. And then just finally, that's actually all I have for the night. Thank you guys so much. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members? Councilman Constant, and then Councilwoman Nancy Breyer, and then Mayor, you had something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Council Chair. And I think our DPW did do a great job getting the streets cleaned. I agree with Council Chair Abdallah that there's always somebody's not happy with the snow being plowed in their driveway or whatever, and we don't live in a perfect world, but I think they did do a good job in getting the salt out, at least in my neighborhood. And hats off to our police chief, Mark Myers, getting the tasers and the body cameras. I know from the short time I was a prosecutor in Dearborn, the body cameras save the city a tremendous amount of money. They make the prosecutions a lot simpler. I believe we get a reduction in our liability insurance if we have the body cameras, so good job. I'd like to also wish a happy 96th birthday to my father, Clarence Constantakis.
Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Who's turning 96 this week. I will be tomorrow morning replacing his rock salt and making sure his driveway and sidewalks are cleared as I have for the last 60 years. So happy birthday to my father. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Happy birthday.
Councilwoman Nancy Breyer.
First of all, I'd like to welcome our new comptroller. It's really nice to have you on board. Secondly, I'd like to thank our Fire Chief Brogan, who bailed me out again when I lost my speaker for last month's meeting for the South Dearborn Heights Civic Association. He did a great job. We had almost 20 people present, even in the weather, and a lot of dialogue. And it was really a good meeting. David can testify to that, I think.
Yes, it was.
And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge our Parks and Recreation Director, Kim. She has, and I think this is probably at City Hall, maybe. She's already got 17 events planned, so be sure and check in. She'll probably mention some of them for you. But thanks, Kim. Good job.
Thank you, Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Council Chair. So I want to wish your dad a happy birthday, Councilman Constant. I actually met your dad in 2017 when I was knocking on doors. he had me go inside the house and he gave me an earful. Yeah,
He's opinionated.
and also he's a veteran, so thanks for his service as well.
Thank you.
Also, so one of the things for ordinance, you mentioned, ordinance, we have booklets that we're going to be making up here and distributing to different sectors of the city. And so we do have a lot of residents, obviously, coming into our city, and we want to let them know what the ordinance is for the city before we start doing sweeps. So we're going to start that program here in next, probably maybe next 3 months or so, probably like early spring. And the other thing is with DPW, so I was at DPW on Friday, spent a little bit of time up there with the guys doing the salting and also the plowing. These guys were working really hard. They started early in the morning. I think it was at 3 a.m. Yep. And they worked around the clock, to get all the streets plowed. And I could see their face; they were like exhausted. So they did really work hard. I want to commend, their team and also Mr. Conrad. So we did an interview also. So what we're trying to do is keep the residents informed. So we do our weekly updates now. It's usually on Friday. So if anything's going on that week, we update the residents, and we post it on the city Facebook. The other last item, I know some of you reached out about Warren Valley Golf Course. We have some issues over there. I can't really talk too much about it right now because of legal issues that might be cause of some legal concerns. But I did request to go into a closed session next Tuesday to discuss some of the issues with the Warren Valley. But it looks like we're going to be taking possession of it next week.
So, but will Warren Valley Golf Course be open this spring?
Well, that's my intention. So that's why we wanted to actually meet next Tuesday, closed session, and I have Mr. Miyake, our attorney, working on a proposal. But we'll discuss that at next week's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I hope so. I got a golf outing planned on June 11th there. Come on, keep it open.
Okay.
Council Chair?
Probably better call him on that. Yes, Councilman.
I had two things written down here that I glanced, I didn't mention, and they're minor though, but
okay,
Mr. Mayor can answer. I had a resident call me and said that they had seen some other than GFL trucks picking up garbage. Is that the new contractor, or is that just someone that's picking up the slack for now?
I'm sorry, what was it? GFL is still the contractor.
Right.
But they're seeing some trucks that are not GFL trucks.
Well, it's still GFL, so I don't know what's going on. There's still GFL till March.
Okay, so there's no one under the new company has not done any work at all in the city. That's basically,
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. So the new company is called Priority. And so I have been in contact with Priority. They do have all the trucks and all the drivers already allocated for Dearborn Heights. They're ready till we finish the contract with the previous contractor. So we'll keep the council updated when that will happen, but they are ready for us to, they were ready actually a few weeks ago. But we told them obviously they can't start till the contract is over with GFL.
So all garbage days are going to stay the same for everyone,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, the residents will not be affected.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to mention real quickly is, February is Black History Month, and I like to look up something every day about Black history, and my one daughter, Paige, is doing a report at school about a woman named C.J. Walker, and, she was born in, she was born in 1867, December 23rd. I know all this, but she was the first black woman to become a millionaire in the early 1900s. Wow. Which is really a phenomenal feat back then, just for anybody. And she made her fortune producing and selling cosmetic problems to African American women. It's pretty cool. She did a real lengthy report. It's pretty interesting. All the achievements that Black Americans have provided for our country.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. Any other announcements? So just quickly, I'm going to, just two items I want to bring up. The first one is on public comments. on agenda items and us as a council being able to answer them. So thank you for our Councilor Gary Miyake for working on making that change, and we're going to start allowing council members to be able to answer members of the audience. Second item, this one I know we've talked about it, but the audit, at this particular point, we had discussed Riemann Schenk contract being formally terminated. Our Councilor Gary Miyake, you're still working on that, is that correct? I know I worked with the clerk on that. Is that correct?
Let me unmute him.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then the last item, this is also for our Councilor Gary Miyake. If you recall, there was at one point a resolution. This is back on September the 14th, 2021. Item 11A, and this was a resolution regarding City Council Charter Review Committee resolution. And I know we voted on that. Do you know the current status on that? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a study session with the clerk's guidance on that particular issue. We'll have hopefully the right members there to speak to all the council members, because there are some newer council members on here, and I'd like to continue to push that forward, just to continue to look at our charter and what changes that we could continue to make or work on as a commission, and eventually coming to the body for the betterment of the city. So if you don't mind, Gary, looking into the status of that, and then Madam Clerk.
If I may?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, my recommendation would be that you find out the interest among 3 of the members of the council, and essentially go through an appointment process by the council with respect to that. If you want, we could end up having a study session, and so that people would know what's going on. And then after the study session, those members could be selected by the council as a body.
Okay, excellent. I definitely would like to do that, so maybe myself and clerk's office will have that discussion, possibly tomorrow, if you don't mind, Madam Clerk, and then we'll...
No problem. I was waiting a response from...
I'm sorry?
I was waiting a response from Corporation Counsel whether or not he could attend either the 15th or the 1st for a study session.
Okay, so we'll set up...
I was in court basically whole time, so sorry.
My focus, I can tell you as a council chair, the reason I'm bringing this up, I don't want for things, and I had this discussion with you, Madam Clerk, and it was on us as a council body, not you guys, so I'm not blaming the clerk's office, to have things stay in limbo. One of them was, if you recall, the garbage dumpster, resolution ordinance, and it just stayed and stayed and stayed and stayed for multiple years. I want things completely off. Either we vote them as yes or completely off. And that's because of some of the newer council members. I think they should know what's involved with that and just see which direction we go from there. Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's it on my end.
Council Chair, I have one thing.
I'm sorry?
I have one thing, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Just a reminder to our pet owners that all animal license expire the end of this month on February 28th. We are open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 12, and then from 1 to 5. You're welcome to come in. The rabies need to be up to date. And if your animal is spayed or neutered, the cost is less. And if you have a pit bull, there are additional requirements. You're welcome to give us a call, or we do have that information on our website as well. So come on in and see us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Baidoon had a question for our Councilor Gary Miyake. Quickly, please.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much, Council Chair. And I know we spoke about this, I believe, at the last city council meeting or the one before that, about the food trucks. I know that Ramadan's coming around, and you're going to start seeing a lot of them coming up and popping up in corners. I know we had this discussion with the mayor, and I believe Councilman Dave Abdullah's actually brought this up since 2017 or 16.
Right. I emailed Gary, and I know he's working on putting something together.
I just don't want April to come around, and then the city is not ready. People are opening up. Nobody's pulling a permit. We're telling them they can either open or not. So if we can just have something prepared and ready before April, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, I anticipate that there won't be a problem. I did have a certain impediment in my schedule in the last couple of weeks that the council chair and the mayor know about. So
Right.
You think we can also get that in a study session as well, so we can discuss it?
So what he's going to do, he's going to put together what is already there, in my email to Gary, he's going to put together what is already in place, and if these parameters are enough for us to move forward to be able to, A, allow it, but B, for our police department, ordinance, administration to be able to monitor it and have some sort of logistics to it. And if we're good, then we'll just continue forward. If we're not good, then us as a council body will make whatever adjustments that needed to be made and then go ahead and implement them within a timely fashion.
Now, one last thing, and it's to you, actually. I remember me and you discussing, and maybe it wasn't in 17, maybe it was around 16 or 15. Me and you discussed something, and we put some type of resolution forward.
Right.
Do we still have that same resolution?
Yeah, there'll just be some possible tweaks that we'd have to it. And like I mentioned, I emailed our councilor Gary Miyake and gave him direction and I know he's working on that. So we'll have something pretty soon. I presume by the next council meeting that we have on the fourth Tuesday of the month, I think we'll be ready to roll with that. If not, if we have to do an emergency or a special study session, we'll go ahead and do that if we have to.
Thank you.
Once he's going to email it to all of us, so all of us will be able to review it and see if we could go ahead. Look, this is not just something about Ramadan. And again, I always like to speak not as a body, as individually. I personally think food trucks are nice and cool things to have in a city. So I'm personally all in favor of food trucks, provided it's not going to cause any type of chaos in our city. But I think they're cool at certain events, whether it's a high school football game, at a park, whatever. Plus, food is usually great.
What was your favorite food truck?
I love fish tacos. What? Yeah, I love fish tacos. Right.
We have an ordinance on place now, it just has to be.
Right, just tweak it if we have to. Any other council members? So next up on the agenda is announcements from members of the city and administration. Go ahead, Madam Treasurer.
Good evening, everyone. And Monday is Valentine's Day. So that's your friendly reminder, don't forget. Could be in trouble. But I do want to remind you that Monday, February 14th is also the last day to pay your winter taxes, your 21 winter taxes without penalty. So make sure if you have not done so, you get that completed before 5 p.m. on February 14th. And as mentioned before, we have a lot of ways to pay. You can pay in person at City Hall. You can use a kiosk at one of the 4 locations throughout Dearborn Heights. You can pay online. You can pay by phone. You can pay at Dearborn Federal Savings Bank. And there's 2 locations, and they have to be Dearborn Heights locations. So again, there's a lot of ways to pay. And oh, don't forget the phone app, which is my favorite. I love paying by the phone app. It's very easy and convenient and takes about a minute to do. So that's just a friendly reminder. Make sure you get that taken care of on Monday if you have not already done so. Also as a reminder for our residents, tax payments are no longer accepted at your City Hall after February 28th. So March 1st, we roll everything over to Wayne County for collection. So therefore, you will not be able to make any payments through all those ways I've just mentioned after March 1st. The last thing I have for you is a reminder, and I hope that you will share this information, is that our office, your Dearborn Heights Treasurer's Office and Garden City Treasurer's Office, is partnering with Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri and Senator Betty Jean Alexander to offer a resource and assistance fair, which is on Thursday, February 10th. It is going to be by Zoom, so virtual, so you can join from anywhere, anytime between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. or until the last taxpayer is served. And you can also call in at 301-715-8592. And I will share this information. Hopefully we can get that up on WDHT before the event. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer. And I'd also like to remind those in the audience and on Zoom, the DivDat program that our Treasurer's Office brought forward. We received an email from our Treasurer, and a lot of residents are starting to use it. I've gone on there and just played around with it. It's pretty easy to use. You can get it on your desktop, on your iPhone, or any phone, smartphone, I should say. But also saves, of course, a lot of time and effort from having to drive to City Hall or mail it in right online. You can pay it. So, thank you, Treasurer.
Council Chair?
Next up,
Just a quick question to the
Councilman.
treasurer. You stated that the taxes are due on February 14th by 5 PM, but is it till midnight on the kiosks or on the app? Or is the deadline 5 PM?
So, good question. And through the kiosk and online, it would be midnight because that's when it flips over and it would be an export for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
next up is our Recreation Director, Kim, AKA Action Jackson. Go ahead.
Hi. First off, I'd like to let you know that our master plan was successfully submitted on February 1st. So now we're waiting from the DNR for our approval and possibly any more information that they would need to go with approving it. So we're anxious and excited about that and hopefully submitting for our first grant soon. We also have, as Councilwoman Nancy Breyer mentioned, we have our schedule that's been coming out. And what we're going to do with that, the schedule that you received, we are actually going to be making desk cards, and it's going to have save the dates on them, but we're going to have QR codes so that we can bring them back to our website and get additional information for each event. I wanted to get it out there so people would know what bands we were going to have, and we have some really fantastic entertainment and events and family activities. The first movie we had last summer was a huge success, and we're going to have a regular scheduled movie every month at Swapka Park. So we have a lot of nice things to look forward to, and you'll see those individually as they come up closer to the date. So, Councilman Wenzel mentioned what we've got coming up, a nice family event. I mentioned it at the last council meeting. It's our Fire and Ice event on February 19th, and it runs from 12 to 7 p.m. at our wonderful Warren Valley Golf Course. We're going to have fire eaters, fire breathers. We're having fire glow from a large hot air balloon, which is hopefully help warm us up and light up the evening because we go until 7 o'clock. The fire department and the library is going to join us. They're going to have tables and have information. The fire department, I believe, is going to have their trucks there for kids to go through and stuff. Lots of entertainment, live entertainment, a disc jockey, lots of free activities for the kids, carriage rides and train rides, and more. Almost too much to mention. So please come, enjoy the day with us, and it should be an exciting day.
And good job, Kim, bringing in the variety of music to the Spirit Festival. Good job.
Thank you.
And Council Chair, I'd like to commend also Kim for the master plan. That's very critical for the city and the
Yes,
grant.
and that was a lot of work. I know her and her department put a lot of work into that. And it always stayed, just out there for whatever reason for many years. So thank you for bringing that forward and completing that. And I do know from a lot of the different sessions that you had for that, it's a lot of work.
It is.
I mean, even going through the master plan, there was a lot of work just reading it. I could imagine putting it together. So
I think
thank
I
you.
went through it about 4 times.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, because at the end of the day, it's through your department, your administration, I should say, so thank you. Any other members from the city that wish to speak? Mr. Mayor, do you have anything else?
Council Chair, some of them are called in, so I don't know if there's anybody.
Is there anybody online from the
For
directors?
announcements, I have 2 hands up, but I didn't know if they were announcements or these are residents.
Okay, so, yeah, residents will have them go on during the public comment section. Is there anybody else that has an announcement to make on Zoom that is a member of the city administration?
Oh, we have Mr. Jamal on here. Let me unmute him, okay?
Okay, Hassan Jamal, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, there he goes.
I want to remember the resident of Dearborn Heights about our program with the COVID-related payment for rent, mortgages, and utility. If anybody is affected by the COVID, please call us at 313-791-3500 and apply. We will provide you up to $5,000 worth of assistance from the HUD program of block grant. So please, we have money for you, so apply if you are affected by COVID.
Mr. Jamal, thank you for bringing that forward. Can you please provide to the audience, of course, they could go online to reach you guys, but at least the phone number, if you don't mind, to the general audience to contact you guys, to ask you questions about that, and that's a great program. Thank you.
313-791-3500.
Okay, thank you very much.
313, if there's a way to put it on the screen, that would be great.
If there's
I hope when we have Studio B, we'll be able to actually encrypt the phone on the screen. I don't think you have the ability to
put it on
down.
the screen? I think they might be able to. I know we have, she's giving me the thumbs up. So Angela, thank you. She'll put that up there. Beautiful, thank you. Appreciate it, Angela, thank you. And just a quick recognition, I always like to recognize people that do a good job. And look, I tell you guys, I love the vibe of our city in the direction it's going in. I feel very comfortable as a resident living here. It's probably the best I've felt in our city in years. So two people I want to call out in a positive direction that I had and speak with residents that had some concerns, and both of them gave superb customer service. And look, the resident may or may not like the answer at the end of the day, but at the very minimal, they had a nice conversation. So Eric from the building department, I'd like to commend you on the job you did with the residents that I put on the line with you to have a conversation with them, and you gave them very clear, concise direction and excellent customer service, as I would love to say, the Ritz-Carlton customer service. You asked them to come back, and you'll meet them, and you'll talk to them, and it was just good stuff. It was just good work, my friend. And the second person I'd like to commend and is a great job is our former chief, Lee Gavin, fellow Detroit Lions fan, so I like that. But he also, there was a resident that had called in, they had some concerns. He had called myself and called Councilman Ray Muscat about a concern in regards to ticketing. And again, at the very minimal time was spent with the resident and explained to them what is going on as far as why the tickets are given, and went through the logistics with the gentleman. And again, the answers may not have been exactly what he wanted, but at the very minimal, the customer service from our chief, Lee Gavin, was superb, and I'd like to commend you for that. So good job. Thank you. Oh, he's giving himself claps. And that's it for me. Any other announcements? Seeing none? Okay, we'll have ladies first, so ladies first always.
Since you mentioned football, for the NFL fans out there, there is a gentleman that went to Robichaud High School, number 23. He's a Cincinnati Bengal. He's a cornerback. He's an injured reserve. Darius Phillips.
Oh, nice.
So he might be able to play. He's number 23.
So Dearborn Heights is in the Super Bowl.
They are in the Super Bowl.
Good job. I like that.
All done.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Council Chair. I know at the last meeting, there's a resident that was talking, was using foul language, addressing the council and also the public. On firsthand, I know what freedom of speech, obviously, with my being in the military, that's what we fight for, right? Is freedom of speech and defending the Constitution of the United States. But the administration, are hearing from residents. They don't want other residents. They don't want to hear foul language. Because there was a couple of residents. They actually called. Their kids were listening to the meeting on Zoom, and they did not like the foul language used. And also, we spent a lot of time. I want to also commend Angela for actually having to go back. And we get fined if we put something out there by the FCC, and if there's any foul language, it's a hefty fine that the city will pay.
It was over $300,000.
Yes. So with that, we have to go back, and it's using a lot of city resources to go back and just to see, have to edit, the tape, make sure, we don't put nothing out there in public. So I ask for anybody that makes public comments, I know it's a freedom of speech to do that, so to say whatever you want, but have some respect.
Sure.
For the
So
other residents.
on that note, Mr. Mayor, I looked into it with our own attorney. I also looked into it with 2 other attorneys that I contacted on my own outside the city, and I also contacted a council chair in another city, former council chair in another city, and also contacted the cheapest attorney you could find called Mr. Google. I even Googled it. And between all those resources across the board, when the resident made the comment, and they were making it as an example, you know, she mentioned it as an example, I could say this, and I was startled by it, obviously. Didn't expect it here because it was a normal conversation, but nevertheless, it is at our discretion as a body as far as what type of language we're going to allow in here. I will allow freedom of speech, absolutely, I'm all for it, and I've said it multiple times at every council meeting, but I will not allow, and I'll take my chances, I will not allow any type of swearing or total disrespect. I will not allow it here in this council body. You can, of course, have any conversation you want, but it's got to be with respect. Thank you. Thank you.
David, I did approach her this evening.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want
She
to
won't
call her out, but
apologize.
I'm just saying in general. Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Any others? No more? Okay, next up on the agenda is public comments. I'm going to start with members of the audience, and then from there, I'm going to go ahead and go to people on Zoom. You will have 3 minutes. Please state your name, the street you live on, and you'll have 3 minutes. Come on up to the podium. Please, by the way, for members of the audience on Zoom and in person, do not state your exact address. I don't think we necessarily need to have your exact address. The world is a little different out there nowadays, and just give your street name and city, that'd be good enough. And name, of course.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bilal Hamoud. I live on Outer Drive here in Dearborn Heights. I just wanted to say that, it's nice to see a lot of friendly faces. Congratulations to the new comptroller. And like you said, Councilman Baydoun, I'm excited for the direction the city's headed. I also have a good feeling. And with that being said, I do want to just share with the residents that I've officially filed my candidacy to be the next state representative for the Dearborn.
Okay, if I could put you on hold, no political speeches, I'm sorry, it's not allowed.
I apologize for
apologize.
But it was good, it worked. I'll continue to say in a just quick and smooth transition, I'm really excited for the direction the city's headed, to grow alongside it, for the new events going on, and for everything to come. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. I look forward to working alongside each and every one of you.
We're excited for your future.
Thank you, Mr. Hamoud. Appreciate it. Next up at the podium, please state your name, city, and street.
Hassan Saab, John Daly, Dearborn Heights.
Okay, I'm sorry, if I could stop you, please don't start the time yet, Madam Clerk. So what I forgot to mention, I'll just mention again, the clerk is going to be putting up, the clerk or Dana is going to be putting up these signs, so you'll have an idea of how much time you have left. And for those on Zoom, because it's a limit of 3 minutes, for those on Zoom, the clerk will be showing it on her screen. So we have our beautiful clerk there, Lincini, as you can see her on Zoom. She'll put it right up on the screen. So you'll be able to have an idea how much time you've got left. So now we're going to go ahead and start. Go ahead, Mr. Hassan. Sorry, and come on up to the mic, please, a little bit. Thank you.
First, I want to show my appreciation for all the elected officials on this body. I know the time and effort it takes to do this job. It's long hours, little pay, and a lot of pressure, and oftentimes it's thankless, but it's God's work. The state of Michigan has 600 municipalities, 83 counties, and a governor. I don't know any executive who works harder than Mayor Bill Bazzi. Change is never easy, especially in a city that has had the same people and the same leadership for so long. It takes guts and courage to take on the kind of challenge. What makes Mayor Bazzi's effort so special is he has to do this thankless job in the force of so much sabotage by the people who are sworn to protect and serve. There's no secret that the leadership in this police force did not want this mayor because he promised to be a steward of our tax dollars, and that meant change for the city. And ever since this mayor has taken office, he has had to watch over his shoulders, manage insubordination, and be even to subject of intimidation like what we saw in the last council meeting. Someone has to stand up and say, Mr. Mayor, I see the courage and the sacrifice it takes to do this job, and I see how much more difficult it is to do the service here than there is in any other town in this state, and I'm not the only one. As I talk to many of my family members, neighbors, and friends, on behalf of all of them, I want you to know we are 1,000% behind you, and I thank you for your service and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. Anybody else in the audience? Once, twice? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please start letting in people on Zoom?
Yes, I have iPhone.
Okay, iPhone on Zoom, please state your name, city,
Street.
and street.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to get on this call. My name is Hassan Zarour, and I live on 855 Ardmore Street. I am a home inspector mainly working out of the city of Dearborn Heights in Dearborn. I am also a registered nurse who has been serving the United States during the pandemic. I mentioned my background so that everybody can understand how much safety is important to me. I would like to speak about the snowstorm that just hit us, and specifically about the cleaning of the streets. Now, the storm hit us on February the 2nd, and I made sure to park my vehicles on my driveway. However, on February the 4th, I know that the emergency alarms did not go off, and I understand it was in effect until 3 p.m. February the 4th, as I believe the emergency alarms should have been turned on February the 4th as well. On this day, I parked my car on the street. An officer drove by my house and saw my truck parked on the street and issued a citation on my car. I find this very upsetting, as my street till now has not been cleaned. I cannot speak ill of the officer, as he was just doing his job, and he is not the one who is responsible for cleaning our streets. But I would like to compare this scenario to a hospital that has nurses but bad management. With bad management, you get bad workflow amongst the nursing staff. I think the city needs to be diligent in cleaning the streets before issuing citations to its residents. My ticket number is 22DH01641. Again, it's 22HD01641. I believe that my ticket should be dismissed immediately, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, sir. On this one, I'm just going to answer with my little knowledge on this, and I'm not sure if the police chief would like to comment on this. But once the ticket is given, at this point, it's at the discretion of the courts and the judges as far as which direction it goes in. So this is not something that's within our discretion, but your comments are noted, and do appreciate where you're coming from. And I'm just going to ask our police chief, did you want to comment on that, or is there anything over and above and beyond what I just said?
Council Chair, you did an excellent job. Please, if you feel that you would like to have that ticket looked at in front of a judge or magistrate, the directions, and this goes for anybody, the directions on how to challenge a violation is actually on the ticket violation. It has the phone number, address of the courts, and you're always welcome and entitled to have your day in court, as they say. So,
Chief, since you're speaking on that, can you give, and I know there's an emergency siren that goes off, but in general, what is the criteria for, if you could repeat it to the residents, so that they know henceforward? Because I did have a resident that said, you know, he's not on social media as much. He had not watched the news on TV, that is, 2, 4, and 7, and I know it was announced there, and I know it was on our website by the mayor. But what is the general rule? So for those that don't have access or just don't get on those for whatever reason, or sometimes maybe language is a barrier, what is the general rule as far as when you cannot park your car on the street during snow?
When a snow emergency is declared, so not only do we talk about it in the annual book that comes out, we Facebook, all those things you said, coordination between the mayor's office, DPW director, emergency manager, police and fire, all those parties. When an emergency is declared, the ordinances allows us to enforce the snow emergency by having all the vehicles removed from the street. It's not really up for the interpretation of when, like how it has snowfall amounts, but once it's declared, it's enforceable. So, and that's where we went. We've had many evolutions of the police department's role in that enforcement. And we've worked very diligently with all those stakeholders, the administration, the emergency manager, DPW, and it was determined that we wanted to get the vehicles off the street, enforce the emergency order, and issue violations. And we have many, many vehicles in this city, many residents, 63,000 residents, and probably almost as many vehicles.
What would be the best place for a resident that did not go on social media or on the news or the website for that matter? What would be the best resource? Just call City Hall, or is it call the police department if they find out if there is an emergency?
So the non-emergency numbers for the police department, City Hall, local radios, TV, news, your neighbors. If your neighbors, like you said, there could be a language barrier. If it wasn't translated or put out in a translation that you were able to understand, we need neighbors to look out for their neighbors. So if they do have somebody who might have been out of town or something like that, I mean, we've had that brought to our police department. The tickets have been issued. Now it's up to, if you want to challenge them, to make the court date, have your date in court, and go from there. I will say that the officers were tied up for those 72 hours. We wrote nearly 600 of those violations over the course of those 3 days. It's a considerable amount of violations, but all of those were vehicles parked on the roadway during an active snow emergency, and the safety of our residents and the plow truck drivers and the people that are walking and driving on our streets. We want to properly care for the snow removal, and the start of it is to not to have vehicles on the roadway.
Okay.
Council Chair?
Yes, Councilman.
Chief, do you know on the day of that gentleman's ticket was issued, I believe he said it was February 4th, were the sirens sounded on that day?
Twice.
Twice that day they were, okay.
Yeah, one around 11 and one around 5 o'clock p.m.
Okay, is that now that's standard procedure, and whenever there's a snow emergency, they are sounded at least twice that day?
No, we did it just out of courtesy. We did it twice.
Well, I think it shouldn't be just a courtesy, it should be a standard procedure. If there's a snow emergency, if you use a siren to indicate to the public that there's a snow emergency, then you should use that siren every day that the snow emergency is in effect.
I like that. I actually agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Mr. Mayor, all set? Okay. Next up is...
Well, Council Chair, I do have another iPhone. There's like 5 iPhones, but I don't know if this is the iPhone that...
Well, either way,
we're
we're going to hit
addressing.
them. Okay, so if you've already spoke, I know iPhone has already spoken, one of the iPhones has already spoken. It's always much easier when you put in a name, by the way, on Zoom. But one of the iPhones has already spoken. For those that have spoken, please take your hand down, lower the hand, so this way we don't call on you twice. Go ahead and call on the next person, Madam Clerk, and if the same person, will let them know they're all set.
Okay, so we have Mariana Hernandez.
Mariana, go ahead now. Mariana is
President.
Chief of Staff, thank you. Blanked out there. As Chief of Staff, I would like to know, are you commenting as a resident or as Chief of Staff, please?
It's just a few comments on announcements of events that are coming up with Wayne County and FEMA. So I just wanted to follow up on the reminder that Mr. Jamal sent with regards to assistance that we have for residents. So the Wayne County Emergency Rental Assistance Program is currently open by the Wayne County. So again, this is assistance for landlords and renters who have been financially impacted by COVID-19. So I encourage you to look at those resources. We have posted it on our Facebook page. Additionally, I know that there is going to be a Wayne County Treasurer's Office is hosting a virtual presentation on taxpayer assistance and resource fair on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. And participants will receive information about tax payment plans, assistance, and any questions that they may have to the Wayne County Treasurer's Office. There's one more item that I wanted to mention, and this is also associated with what the Cultural Commission is doing right now with regards to, women nominations. But the FEMA Youth Preparedness Council is currently looking for applications, and they're also hosting a webinar on February 17th at 8 p.m. So this is for any youth that is interested in engaging with emergency preparedness, to again attend the webinar and ask any questions they may have with regards to the application and how to get engaged with FEMA. So all of those would be posted on our Facebook page. I encourage anyone that wants assistance with any of those or is interested in learning about those programs to visit their websites.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief of Staff Mariana Hernandez. Appreciate it. Next up,
Next, we have Anonymous.
Anonymous, please go ahead.
I just asked.
But I will need you, I know you're anonymous on here, but I will need you to state your name, city, and street you live on.
Hi, my name is Sarah Berry. I live on Wilson in Dearborn Heights.
Thank you.
I just want to start off by saying I support the mayor and everything he's done so far. I've lived in the city for the past 32 years, and I see many great changes that he's doing. But my comment is in regards to the police department and just a lack of respect, I might say. Obviously, it's ignorance at this point that they just don't fully understand the Arab culture and just everything about it. But with several interactions, myself with officers in the department and even my friends as well, there's just a bit of ignorance between like conversations, a lot of dismissions. And it's unfortunate because there are very good police officers and it's just because of the toxic environment. And I do think there needs to be some type of turnover. And I hope to see what the mayor is going to do about the police department and the leadership department going on. And yes, that's the end of my comment.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Berry.
Okay.
Are you all set? Yep, thank you.
I have one
Next up.
more iPhone.
Okay, iPhone, if you are the resident that has yourself as iPhone has already spoken, then obviously you'd be all set. But if it's a new resident with the same name, iPhone.
Can I just follow up with that statement that I made earlier, just so I can make it clear to you guys? It just need 30 seconds.
So what I'm gonna do, just out of courtesy, because normally I would not allow, but I'm gonna allow you just 30 more seconds, please.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I just want to make it clear. So it seems that my question was geared to the chief of the police. I was actually trying to see how you guys justify me getting a ticket without my streets getting cleaned. That is my main concern as well. So I'm just trying to understand how you guys issue tickets without actually having the streets getting cleaned. Is there anybody from the council that can address that to me, please?
Okay.
It's not regarding the chief of police.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So this one will be the administration question. I don't know if the mayor. I'm sorry?
We need to know the street.
Ardmore Street.
Ardmore, what's the address?
What's your address?
Can you repeat the address? Here, I've got it, 855 Ardmore.
Yeah.
While they're out there, my parents live on Sims. It wasn't clean.
Council Chair.
We need to look at it,
Okay, so this is for iPhone. The mayor's going to look into it.
If he wants to call the office tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
If he can call tomorrow, the office, we can give him a.
Okay, I presume obviously you have a way to get his phone number somehow?
No, if he can call the city
Oh,
hall
okay, I'm sorry.
tomorrow.
If you could contact the mayor's office tomorrow, Mr. iPhone, I believe it was Zarur, if I'm not mistaken, Hassan. If you could contact the mayor's office tomorrow, he'll have some answers to some of your questions and hopefully a resolution. Thank you. Councilman, something quick? All set? Okay, next up, Madam Clerk?
I think that's.
Nobody else?
I have an iPhone, but I didn't lower his hand, so that was him.
Okay, anybody else from Zoom? Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, move to adjourn by Councilman Moby Dune, supported by Councilman Constant. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.